All right, we're good.
Did you get coffee?
No, I don't need coffee. I drank it before.
Ah,
Okay, it started.
yeah. All right, here we are. The much anticipated Uriah Heep album tier ranking podcast. Uh, we did this twice before. We did this with Black Sabbath. Audio did not pan out, but it was a fun episode. We also did it with Saxon, which is a good warm up episode, and the audio did survive, although limited capacity, somewhat reduced on Michael's side. I think for now we're gonna use the current setup and just see how it works. I think it'll be okay. The audio has been somewhat adjusted in preparation. And again, this is a band, Uriah Heep, that's been around since almost the late 60s, early 70s. One of the oldest classic rock bands that still performs. They're a major pioneer of heavy metal, hard rock, and psychedelic rock, too, as we'll come to know as we explore these albums. I I have a spreadsheet prepared so we can take extensive notes. I think a lot of these albums are going to be surprising, and we've spent a week or so listening to as much as we can. It's a lot of music, and it's a lot of the only one thing you should remember is that the only band member that's played in all these albums, I believe, is Mick Box, because so many of the band members have died, and he's the only surviving band member as of 2023, as of July 13th, 2023, on Thursday. And you can hear his guitar playing on all the albums. So that's kind of the one through line. But beyond that, you got a lot of different eras, and we're about to unpack all of those. So starting with the first era of Uriah Heep, let's start with their first album ever, their debut, Very Heavy, Very Humble, 1970.
Very iffy, very humble. Uh, yeah. So, you're right here. Very iffy, very humble. Um, what can you say? Uh, what do you have to say about this album?
Personally, I dig it. It's a great cover. It's very unusual. When I first listened to it, I didn't realize it was as old as it was. I thought it might have been like a '74 album, something like that. I didn't realize it was their first album. And of course, in preparation for the podcast, I established that it was, having listened to it before, not knowing. I will say that I don't think it's the best album they've ever produced. It has some flaws. It's not the hits on it are not my favorite songs by them. I'm not a big fan of the first track, "Come Away Melinda." "Gypsy's" a fun song, but it's not my favorite Uriah Heep song. It's kind of up and above average song for me. Uh, yeah, it's not loaded with like great material, but it's got enough hidden gems that it feels like it itself is a diamond in the rough. I would give it an A minus or a B plus.
I think,
It's just not. It's not like the top of the top for me. But it's probably second or third highest tier.
I think I'm with you on this album being, like, it's not necessarily loaded, per se. I think that, I do think that this does sort of feel like they're still trying to pin down their sound at this point. Like they're sort of oscillating between, you know,
In
rocker.
notes, yeah, like you're saying, it's not. It's kind of all over the place in a creative, flourishy kind of way, but it just really isn't cohesive.
Yeah.
A lot of their albums, as they change lineups, they tend to kind of go through in transitional phases where they just don't really have cohesion, but they are doing a lot of experimentation that is appealing on an instrumentation level. I think this album is kind of the first example of that.
Yeah.
Although it does have a little bit more of a an effortfulness, I think, because it's their first album ever. It was
Yeah.
sort of prodigious.
I
Um,
think what's weird is that compared to, say, Saxon with their debut album, like this, weirdly enough, doesn't feel like a debut. Like it feels
It
like,
doesn't. No, that's what I was saying. It really feels like it's like a sophomore album maybe, or like a third tertiary album. doesn't
Yeah,
feel like their first attempt, and I kind of refuse to believe that it was, even when I read that it was their debut. I was like, no. Like,
it feels more like album two.
but to be fair, these guys were relatively seasoned musicians. I mean, there's what's it called? Fat was the band's was kind of the precursor, and it had members of Jethro Tull and what would become Uriah Heep,
Yeah, because Jethro Tull
including Lee
keeps.
Herslake and Ken Hensley. So I think Toe Fat was kind of, if you think about it, Lee Herslake and Ken Hensley were very much important to the early sound. Not let's not say the most important, but they were some of the main members for years and years, for over 10 years. And if they're working together in a prior act, it's going to that sophistication will show up. All the years of experience. It's really not a cold open for Uriah Heep, even though it's their first official album.
Yeah,
So I'll put it on my end. I'll put it in A. How about that?
I think on my end, I think
B.
there are better albums. I think high B.
Okay, yeah, no, that's. I was waiting for you to say that. Yeah, I think B.
I think there are better albums from this lineup, and there are better albums as a whole. But with that being said, I
It's a
think this
very
is like
it's a very cool album cover,
yeah,
but it's a little weird.
there are a lot
It's like
of great Uriah Heep album covers. This is one of the
it's a
better
slight
ones.
yeah. There's a lot of good ones, and it's a slightly weird execution.
Yeah,
Gypsy is my favorite song on. Again, it's not the best song in their catalog.
it's fun though. It's I think depending on the track list, I think sometimes it's the opening track and sometimes it isn't. Uh, we get a
Weird,
lot of that with this band.
very weird.
Speaking
Yeah,
of
different countries will they will like press albums differently with songs, right? Like not
yeah,
corresponding to different other countries. In the UK, a lot of their hits are probably like the singles were probably emphasized in the UK maybe, and the US the hit the singles and what singles were released in different countries. Maybe they weren't emphasized at the beginning of the album.
yeah,
And obviously, you should know that we were talking about this before. Actually, that Uriah Heep wasn't extremely popular in America, but they had a lot of worldwide sales. That would include like Canada, not just the UK where they're from, and also the rest of Western Europe. So, and I imagine Australia was hip to it. They've been all over the world, but for some reason the US was not as crazy about them as it was, say, Blue Oyster Cult.
yeah. Or
Anyway,
even other UK bands like Sabbath ended up getting
oh
pretty
yeah, no, I
famous.
mean, yeah, UK. I mean, Blue Oyster Cult's an American band, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There are a lot of UK bands that were popular.
Speaking of the random uh, track list changes, Salisbury.
As in one of
Sal.
those. Jeez.
Yeah. Um. It's one of those. um.
Weird, man. Weird. Let's. Okay, well, starting out, Salisbury is probably my favorite photo cover, and just one of my overall covers for the. It also has some of my favorite songs on it. Lady in Black, The Park, Time to Live, High Priestess isn't so bad. Salisbury I can get behind. I think the sound on this album is a lot more figured out than on the first one. It's maybe a little bit less hairy and like woodsy, or even more polished, maybe a little too artificial at times. But the cohesion is there, and you really feel like they're capable at producing like a wall of sound of their own.
Yeah. I think.
Um, before I start misquoting Phil Spector, I think I can rest on it. This album really rests on its laurels as a strong sophomore album. I think it's an A.
Um. I. Okay. So Salisbury. Um. Truth be told, despite the fact that this is their second album, to me, there's another album that fights with it as a personal thing. I think this is their best album out of all 25. If I really had to pick,
I was gonna say that, but they have a lot of good material.
Yeah, they do
Yeah,
have a
but
lot of
yeah,
like
for me, it's one of their best. It's just the sound is so good, and the consistency with the sound that is obviously doesn't really. I hate to say it, their other albums don't really sound like this album.
yeah.
This album has kind of a unique, special sound, and I think that's why it just rings true the whole like for the entire 45 minutes or whatever it was.
It's very
So yeah,
it's very
it's good.
bombastic. It's big. It
I want to give it an
feels.
S. I'll give it an S. I've compromised. Yeah.
I think an S is definitely worth it. This album, just everything about it, like the mammoth title track is just it's kind of just insane. My first listening experience to that. I know depending on the track list, there could be a song called "Bird of Prey" on it. Occasionally, yes. Occasionally, not. That's very. It's a bit heavy compared to "Very Heavy, Very Humble." Um,
Okay.
it's at times very riff driven. It is. It does have a little bit of that like minor sort of inconsistency. Like sometimes it'll sway prog, sometimes it'll sway hard rock, even proto
Right.
metal.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Um, but I think that unlike Very Heavy,
It's
Very
a little
Humble, it's a
too
lot more
jammy. I will
cohesive.
say it's a little too jammy sometimes, and I wish that it was
Yeah.
more lyrical all the way.
I will say, like, if there is one thing that's a bit off, is that it does feel a bit jammy. With that being said, I don't really mind that too much. Like, that's the same reason why I like
Oh,
Never Say Die for Black Sabbath. Or Master Reality even occasionally feels a bit jammy.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the early metal is jamming. I think it kind of helped develop this
It's
at an instrument level. So
it's charming.
you kind of par for the course. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
it
kind of
is
charming
charming.
too.
Okay, so without further ado, let's move on to our third album. Look at yourself.
Yes. This album cover is not very reflective. Okay, I keep making puns, but I don't mean to make. um, but this album is supposed to have like a mirror reflective cover on it, at least on its original releases. It doesn't show on the image, but it's called "Look at Yourself" because you're literally supposed to fucking look at yourself.
Yeah, this one's getting weird. Like this is starting to look like the eyes of Laura Mars or something. Like getting
Yeah.
meta. I feel like creeped out by it honestly. But that said, it's got some good songs. July Morning is kind of the one that everyone knows. Really, it's like Gypsy on Very Heavy, Very Humble. That is July Morning is kind of like this big centerpiece in the dividing sort of A section from B section
Yeah.
or side A from side B. Really a mammoth of a track. I think it's 10 minutes, and it's one of
Yes.
the iconic Uriah Heep songs, and also there's some videos on the web that make it look pretty spicy too. That song alone gives me good regard for this. But if that were the only thing, it would be a good, respectable album. But this album actually has some other good stuff. Some it has "Look at Yourself," and it has uh hmm. What did you think of the What did you think of the B side for this album? Because the side one I think is almost perfect, but side B I don't remember it being very strong.
I think side B is solid. This is not a Crusader situation. Um, I
Okay.
think the album, like the sound wise, unlike Crusader, is very consistent across both sides. I just don't think the songwriting on side B is quite as memorable, like you said, as say the title track or July Morning.
Yeah, I mean, the side A really is a romp, and side B is more of like a ride out. Um, Smoother. I would give it a B, maybe a C. But with a good first side, I have.
I think I'm willing to cut the B side slack to put it in B, maybe a little higher than Very Heavy
Yeah,
for
B
me.
plus. Okay, okay.
Yeah. I think like it's I feel like this is like the album where like he like really nailed down their sound though.
Okay.
This is the first Uriah Heep album with a consistent sort of sound across. It's a very many progressive elements, a little bit of proto metal, a bit of very gothic at times, which would be accentuated in future albums.
Yeah, it's a little it's a creepier album than very heavy, very humble. I mean, very heavy, very humble was a fun album. It was sort of had this whiplash sort of dancing and like charm to it a little. This one is kind of like it's more contained and more dedicated, some sort of mission statement. It's never really made super clear. It's a creepy album, but it's a fun one. So it's kind of I don't know. It's awkward, but it's a good kind of awkward.
Yeah. You know
All
what
right, up
wasn't
next.
awkward?
What?
Demons and Wizards.
No, I was gonna say, absolutely not. This one is one of the best albums they've ever produced. What year was it exactly?
I believe I want to say 72 or 73.
Yes, it was May 19th, 1972.
Oh shit! Wow, all good things come out of May 19th.
Why? What else came
I
from?
don't actually know what else came out of May
Oh,
19th. I'm
okay,
just saying
okay.
that.
Indiana
um,
Jones. Dude. It was June 30th.
June 30th. Yeah, that was June 30th. May 9th.
Uh,
Yeah, Demons and Wizards. Yeah.
they have on this album is pretty stacked. It's probably got four easily killer songs, maybe five, six. Easy Living, Poetic Justice, The Wizard, Rainbow Demon, Circle of Hands, Paradise slash The Spell. I mean, to be fair, some of them are like Rainbow Demons, song, The Wizard, really cool anthemic song, kind of iconic even for them. Great music video, proto music video, concert footage, whatever you want to call it. Circle of Hands is a really endearing, kind of like intimate song, great for their B side. The album art by Roger Dean is always, very fantastical and smooth and killer. Um, Easy Living is a great opening song. Maybe a little awkward, a little bit like, Gypsy or July Morning. It's got that sort of awkward Uriah Heep charm. But still, I mean, it's a 2 minute, 46-second ditty. Doesn't really matter in the face of the whole album. So I'll give this album an easy S. Yeah, this album is. If it weren't for this album, I don't even know if Uriah Heep would be on the map in a way, because this album I think is one of their most definitive.
Yeah. This is the one I think I know. Look at Yourself was sort of like the primer. I want to say for their success,
Right.
popularity. Demons and
This
Wizards
is the
was
this is the slug bullet. This is
yeah.
this is the real deal.
Yeah, I think like in terms of like their, I know for sure in terms of their popularity, I think this is an extremely consistent album. That gothic rock sound that they had many elements of on Look at Yourself have been 100% ironed out here. There isn't as much of a progressive feel on this one, I think, compared to Look at Yourself and Salisbury, but
It's not as progressive.
it's
It's more,
confident.
but it's confident. It's more polished. They're really kind of rounding out the curves, trying to make songs that function independently of the entire vibe of the album. So I would say it's maybe a little more commercial for sure, but also just more refined. You're not going
Who
to
said
find.
commercials bad?
You're not really going to find a more perfected Uriah Heep album than Demons of
Yeah, it's like an overall, like, this is just pure, uh,
Force.
I just said it. I just said the damn word. It's pure confident cohesion while still being fun, while still being,
It has the cohesion of Salisbury with the fun of very, very,
yeah,
and it also has the mystic kind of creepy look at yourself. It kind of recapitulates the best of all.
yeah,
For their fourth album, I mean, it kind of was. They were maybe a little slow on the take for a classic band, but still, it was worth it. 'Cause this is you couldn't any band out there would be jealous of these guys for me.
yeah. I'm with agreement on
This
you. I
is
know you said it should be an S before, and to be honest, I agree. Um, I think it is an S tier. I personally am more of a Salisbury person, but I still really love this album.
Salisbury is a cooler vibe, but this one it just is stacked. So that's
Yeah,
what I like about
it's very. Both of them I think are stacked, but this one's like stacked.
it. Yeah, this one is like it's like mastermind, whereas Salisbury is like organically.
Yeah,
This is the way I feel about it. Like it's like Salisbury is a really like top to bottom good album. But it does feel like it just sort of happened. Like there wasn't that much forethought. Whereas with this one, it feels like they kind of had like a strong vision.
yeah.
Uh,
Though I also do want to mention that on this album and Look at Yourself, the Ken Hensley this is the moment where he sort of became the lead songwriter, as Salisbury was sort of like a mix of writers, and Very Heavy was mostly written by Mick Box, and everyone
okay,
except
okay.
Hensley.
Say that again. Say that. Very heavy was Mick Box, and then who was the lead singer? This was Ken Hensley.
Yeah,
Was
Salisbury is sort of a mix.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Ken Hensley's songwriting, and when he passed away a few years ago, it was like really depressing. I mean, I lived through it, but it was just kind of depressing because he was like an icon. Sorry, not an icon,
He made a
idol for me.
great solo album just before he
Did he
passed
really?
away.
I've
Yeah,
heard his solo career was like really kind of dastardly and sort of raucous and not really. But you're saying he had a good one?
he made one right before he passed away.
Oh, that one was good. Okay.
Um, Speaking of good, Magician's
Yeah. Okay.
Birthday.
By the way, this same year, 1972. This was obviously May 19th, but was it May 19th?
Yeah, May 19th for Demons and
Yeah. Okay.
Wizards.
In November of the same year, they would release another amazing album, Magician's Birthday, and I think this was the first album I ever bought on vinyl by them. And this was in sometime in November. I think November 30th or thereabout. And Magician's Birthday probably their best opening track. It's literally like rivaling Rainbow, like with
It's just
Sunrise and
explosive.
Stargazer.
It's like
What?
that explosive, just like build up and
Explosive,
then just
volcanic.
Byron lets loose.
Yeah, an amazing opening track, and it's really like they're getting into Rainbow territory. Obviously the percussion is very good. There's like does a great job, just like Cozy Powell. My only thing with this album is that at the end of side one you get Rain, cool song, very charming and dreary and sort of Zeppelin-y.
Hmm.
And so once you get into side two, Sweet Lorraine, I wasn't crazy about Sweet Lorraine. No, it is a single, a hit. And then The Magician's Birthday is a very fun song. I try to play it on my birthdays actually, if you must know, because it's a very goofy, sort of eerie birthday song of some kind for the magician.
Yeah,
But this album does kind of fall short of the same consistency that Demons and Wizards. Although it is a more explosive album.
I think it's
I don't know.
very.
I have mixed feelings about it actually. Even though I respect the Roger Dean artwork, I mean, and it was the same year. It's one of the few years where they did two albums. In this in within 12 months, same label year. But I can't say it's as good as Demons and Wizards. It comes close, but it's just no cigar.
You know what's funny is that this album, when it's this is actually the at the moment the only Heap album I have on vinyl. It's funny that you brought that up.
Yeah,
I
it's a good first purchase, isn't it?
Yeah, I think honestly, like if I were to recommend like the first Uriah Heep album for someone to listen to, it would, even though Demons and Wizards and Salisbury are better, I think I would choose this as a first because of
Well, you know what
the.
it is, man, is that this one they're not trying to like sell it to you. Like, even though it looks a lot like Demons and Wizards, I think they know that it's maybe not as like desirable in the market. They don't charge as much for it. Demons and Wizard is always going to be a little bit more. So if you want a throwaway album that's pretty good, this one is a very good bargain because it's actually a solid album, but I just don't think it has the reputation.
I
It
mean,
ends up being slightly cheap.
I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't call it a throwaway album. I think this album is
No,
pretty
I mean,
good.
no, I mean, I'm saying if you're not into like what I mean to say, right, is that if you're not super dry heap yet, and you want a throwaway album that like it doesn't make it or break it for you. Just something you can try on. This is a good one
Yeah,
because it's probably not too expensive,
there's a bit of
and
variety on the
it's a bit of
music.
variety. Yeah, it's just it's kind of a carousel ride all the way through. It's fun, fun
Yeah,
house
it's a
era
lot more
sort of.
keyboard driven too. I also
Oh
noticed.
yeah, that is a good observation. Very keyboard driven. Um,
It's also
it's kind of a carnivalesque album top to bottom. I would
yeah,
say
not a
it's a
knock,
good,
but
it's a good entry level introductory
I think it's a solid A.
record. All day.
Yeah, just like a straight in the middle A. You
Yeah,
know,
it's a bullseye. A double bullseye, none of that triple bullseye shit. It's just
it's
like
a
a
bullseye.
legit bullseye.
And I think, at least to me, I'm not sure if you'll agree with me on this, but I feel like that starts to shift with Sweet Freedom.
Okay, you think it's a decline? There's a beginning
Yeah.
of a decline.
Not necessarily saying that this album is bad, because I actually think it's good. Um, I think. I just think that there's a little bit less. This one has
I
another.
do love the album cover though. The album cover is good.
I think, like, usually I'm not really a big fan of band on cover album covers,
I'm
but
not either, but it works for some.
this one weirdly fits. It's not like a Tony Iommi Seventh Star cover, where as much as I really do love that album, I think
Oh, you know what the worst one is? Is that's a bad image.
just Tony
If
Iommi
you
staring
you
into
know
the
what's even worse,
distance.
I think, is the Jimmy Page Outrider album.
Oh,
That's got
don't
an
let
even
me
worse.
see this. I'm gonna pull it up on the recording. Jimmy Page Outrider.
Oh yeah, it's so bad.
Oh, not Outriders. Oh fuck.
It's so bad. Yeah, well, yeah, there's
What?
also I know, right?
Boo! Blur! What the hell am I looking at?
But he just didn't at that point. It peaked, man. He was just like, I don't care. Like
I don't
I had a
fucking
great
care.
first act. I don't. Nothing else matters.
Bye. Just walks in, walks out like that. Okay, wow. What an album cover. What? what? um, yeah. Unlike that though, I do like the Sweet Freedom cover. I think it fits the music weirdly enough.
Yeah, you have stealing. I mean, it's got. I can't say that I'm a fan of the tracks on this album, but stealing is one of the earliest songs that you ever listen to, and it's a really funny one. Um, there's a lot of humor, I think. I don't think yeah, you can kind of feel like Gary Thane might, I don't know. I don't know how to explain. Like it loses traction.
Yeah, it's like
It definitely
it
loses
does. It
traction.
has a bit of a look at yourself problem where I feel like it starts off very strong, but then it not very strong, not definitely not as strong as look at yourself starts. But I do feel like it just sort of dies out as it goes on, very slowly. Actually, I feel like it peaks with Dreamer, the opening track.
Really?
Um, Stealing is Stealing One Day, Sweet Freedom. I just feel like once you get to If I Had the Time, like it just sort of
Yeah, it's a little onerous, isn't it? You're like, okay, you guys had like a really good last few albums, and you're doing this. Like,
it's just a bit too laid
it's a
back.
disappointment. It's a disappointment.
Very
Um,
much resting on laurels, even though like they do tend to experiment at times with a little bit more of a bluesy sound that never comes back. Um, you
oh,
know,
well, you're saying that this album is bluesy. What do you mean?
there are parts of the album that like sound a bit bluesier. I want to say, like
It's a
very
looser album.
vaguely, yeah.
It's a
But at the
looser.
same
Yeah,
time,
it's
it feels a little not too
looser, but it doesn't
loose
have the
that
hairiness. It doesn't have the hairiness that the earlier stuff had. With
yeah
the exception of Gypsy, I guess. Like overall, it's just the hairiness doesn't have that weird cohesion that it used to have. And you can feel that it's like sort of like a post Golden Age album
yeah.
because of that.
In a way,
Uh,
it kind of reminds me a little of Sabotage by Black Sabbath in that regard, where just sort of feels like a band
yeah,
on the border.
and on the run, kind of. You really feel like they're just sort of like at wit's end, and they haven't really accepted it yet. And of course, the next several albums will be them trying to recapture the magic, and you'll find mixed success for the most part until Byron leaves. Or no, well, after I mean, so not until Byron, until their comeback. What I meant to say.
Yeah,
Byron does leave. The singer David Byron does leave, but they are able to recapture the magic without him somewhat. But we'll find that it doesn't really turn. They don't really. It doesn't really recoalesce in anything.
it's not always the same kind of magic.
Fantastic until we get to basically. Wouldn't you say that Abominog and Head what that's
I think
Head first
Abominog is like the refreshment moment. It's just
refreshment?
bear with this. These next few albums are these next
Ice or
line of
dicey.
albums are a little thin ice. Some of them
And
fell,
I see.
some of
Okay,
them fell through.
where do you want to put it? You want to give it a B or a C?
I think this album, like I still think this album.
Is it the tail end of the golden age? Maybe a B.
You know, I'm being very harsh. Maybe on this album. I don't know. I'm thinking a very low B
Okay,
at most.
B minus, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
minus.
Which leads me to Wonderworld, the last with Gary Thane.
And he tragically passed away in what 1975.
Yes,
Yeah,
he was
so
fired from the band, I believe, or quit. I think he was fired
yeah,
after
it's
this album.
entirely possible that because of his substance, he's just like David Byron. He was just ousted, which has not set a good karma for this band. They had made some mistakes by kicking people out too quickly. Um, anyway, I think it harmed them in the long run. Um, so Wonderworld. What? Let me. This one's like. I actually really like the cover. It's got this sort of dumb, like like attempt at being artsy that almost it's like Halloween or something. That kind of works.
It's like
But it's
dancing
like still
statues
pretty
in a
cheesy.
museum kind of feel.
Yeah, it's like trying to be fancy, but it's tongue in cheek at the kind of it's kind of clever.
Yeah, I like the tone of the cover art. I think, unfortunately though, this is the best thing about the album because I think from here until like midway through the John Lawton era is where Uriah Heep loses me.
Yeah, this album doesn't have a ton of memorable songs, and it really is sort of like a drag to listen to. I
Yeah,
think it does. It isn't. It's not like bad music at like the minimalist sense, but compared to everything else they did, it's like an all-time low.
yeah. It feels very just much like them, just sort of doing it because it feels more like an obligation this time around. Like, oh,
Oh yeah,
we're gonna do Uriah Heep
obligatory.
album.
Yeah. Obligatory sort of. You know what it reminds me? Because this is like getting into like the late '70s. It reminds me of that goofy Purple album where they got heroin addict guy to play guitar. Because
Wait,
Richie Blackmore went to Rainbow and they got Tommy
uh,
Bolin.
come taste the band. Come taste the band.
Yeah, and they got Tommy Bolin to do it, and then he just like died like a year. Like
He
you
just died. I think right after or during the tour for the album.
yeah, it's like so weird. He was a good
At,
guitarist, but it was like a huge disaster.
at that point, I feel like it didn't really feel much like Deep Purple. And this is not me crapping on like Ian Gillan or nothing. Burn is my favorite Deep Purple album, but
It's a good album, but I think that paired to that, you can make the argument that Wonderworld had more consistency at a personnel level. It was just a little more. It was a little more like polished at like the political. But the music is. I mean, it's just not.
the music I just
Doesn't it
I
doesn't.
don't think it's there. The songwriting is
Yeah,
not
it's just
there.
not there. They're really like they're not even thinking about it anymore. I think they're literally just phoning it in.
Yeah, it's just sort of
Um.
like mindless. What the people at when Very Heavy Very Humble was released, that got this sort of like criticism of, oh, they're just wannabe versions of other bands, and if I think Rolling Stones reviewer said, if these guys make it big, I will off myself or something like that.
Really? Because of Wonderworld?
Because of Very Heavy Very Humble, and I think like
Oh, funny.
I think that's by the way that's just fucking funny. Yeah, it's just okay. Of course they never did it, but
Is that like that wasn't Lester Bangs or someone? It was someone like random.
yeah, I think some guy who was
Like
reviewing it
Rolling
for Rolling
Stone.
Stone back when the album came out. But I feel like a lot of people like at the time, Very Humble was not very well received. But I think that criticism of just sort of like a normal rock band making a normal hard rock album going through the motions, well, that I don't think applies to that album. It applies to Wonderworld.
Yeah, it really is kind of like they're just. It's sort of like a filler album, like all the way through.
Yeah, and it's a
I will
shame
give it
because
a. I'll give it a C or D.
I think a C because I did just say that like this is where they lose me, but I think they get worse somehow.
Well, honestly, I do like. On the next one is Return to Fantasy. I do like that title track.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Return to Fantasy is to me the technical ecstasy of their discography. Not as
oh
bad.
dang,
Definitely not as bad.
close.
But I actually do think this one's a little bit better than Wonderworld as a whole. But I think if the title track is great. I think it's probably one of my favorite Uriah Heep songs.
It's
But
a good song.
besides
And
that,
it's almost it's a slight return to form, but it isn't it doesn't come to full fruition,
yeah,
and you really kind of feel like, oh, maybe there's just no hope anymore.
I think like this.
Um,
That's the song where they. That's the song I feel like where they get full metal, like full on, like
fantasy,
like this is. I think this is like the birth of power metal. I want to say it
dude,
can be traced back to
and
Return to
that's Michael
Fantasy.
True.
You know,
I
actually,
mean,
it's
I
kind of funny
feel
because I think Gamma Ray did a cover of this song at one point.
I don't know. I feel like Deep Purple is always kind of
Oh yeah, Deep Purple too, and there's also just Richie Blackmore in general. You could say.
yeah. His whole person. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
and the
granted, he
old,
is
but the
playing more
old.
Renaissance music now, but
Now he's sort of
he's
this
with Kid
dodding
This
old
Night.
man. But yeah, the aura for purple
It's
Raya and purple or whatever. It's all kind of power metal ultimately. And
yeah, it's very present on the, and that Deep Purple feel is very present on this album, and will come back. Trust me. But
okay, so I never really felt like this album was important. What I remember is it's not super um uh it isn't really it isn't a contender in their catalog. It just has a kind of a good title track, art
yeah,
album art, and then kind of running on empty.
yeah. The rest of it just sort of like it's. The reason why I compared it to Technical Ecstasy is that even though again not even close to being as bad as that album in my opinion, but
You think it's a C? Like
yeah, I
Wonderworld?
think it's a C, maybe a little higher than Wonderworld purely because like Wonderworld is just sort of like the whole way through. Like Return to Fantasy starts great and then just for the rest of it. It has one track that I can take away from it that's like really great.
And then to be admittedly in this year with 676, right? 75. Um,
Yeah,
wait, wait, what is this? This isn't 73. What
Return to
73?
Fantasy.
Are we getting this mixed?
I think no. I think no. 73 was Sweet Freedom. I know. This is 75. Oh, and
Right.
also I did forget to mention that this has John Wetton on bass from King Crimson and eventually Asia.
Oh, funny.
Um, and he would
Weird.
be a bit more of a presence on the following album, but I believe, according to the rest of the band, he didn't quite gel with everyone else. I mean, it's John Wetton. He never sticks around for more than 3 albums anyway.
Yeah, he doesn't sound like the most charismatic person. But do you think his contribution? Like, I mean, do you think it was sort of just
I
like a
don't think
shoe in?
his contributions in this album don't quite. They're not as prominent. I feel like he just sort of feels more like a bassist, you know,
Okay.
on this album. And this is coming from someone who has like again, I like John Wetton, so
I will say the sound on this album is good. It's just that
Yeah.
the star power for the tracks is
Outside of the title track, it's just not there.
okay. Up next, High and Mighty.
Yeah, this is an interesting album because I go back and forth on this one a
I
lot.
actually, I actually, I think it has a similar strategy going for it that Salisbury actually has. I don't think it's as effective, but I think it does have a cohesive sound. It goes in different directions and is mildly interesting. And some of the tracks have really good sections, but it's just not like there's no real hit star power to.
I think
But
of
in little bits and pieces, it is actually brilliant. It doesn't tie together very well.
yeah, I think that it doesn't like tie together like 100% great, but I think unlike the last two albums, okay, Return to Fantasy had the title track again, but unlike those, I feel like there's a lot more energy to this one, even though you could definitely tell like this is a band trying to experiment and maybe getting a little too ambitious at times. It's a bit poppier in some respects, but I do feel like there are more standouts this time around, one way or another being a great example of that. That one
Yeah,
actually has Ken Hensley and John Wetton on vocals.
yeah. There's something kind of wonderful about it. Not to dump Wonder World into the tank. Wonder World's more like Water World, whereas this one does kind of feel like there's a one um, mist in the air.
Yeah,
I
it's very
can't give it a C.
airy.
I think I would give it a B, but it's
I think
like a
I agree
hollow
with
B.
you because it is a
Okay.
very it's a bit inconsistent, but it's just it's too charming. It's too charming for C.
Right. Okay. Cool. Cool.
In fact, I might even say a little higher than Sweet Freedom by like a
Okay.
hair.
Jeez.
Now, at this point, after this tour, David Byron was fired due to
Just sad because he was
yeah,
the best thing that ever happened to.
like, but Byron's
No,
pipes. What?
they went downhill.
Yeah,
I haven't actually looked into like the live foot. I imagine it. With all the alcoholism, it's like not going to be pretty.
yeah. It affected his performances, and it also happened to Gary Thane as well. Like um,
Okay.
he had the substance abuse on top of I think he got electrocuted on stage on one of the live performances. Gary Thane, and
Yeah.
he it, like rendered him like unable to play, combined with the drugs. So they ended up firing him. And I don't think Byron got electrocuted, but God forbid. But um, you know,
Oh no! It's weird that Gary Thane did and then just sort of died. I feel like that guy's so tragic. Like he kind of has too many negatives at the end of his life going.
yeah,
What he was just kind of the bass player, right? Like he didn't need to have like all that bullshit going on.
yeah.
Isn't his life supposed to be relatively simple? When do bass players like
Oh,
Cliff Burton and Gary Thane, and
like Cliff
Gary
Burton
Oakley?
just dies in a freak accident. Even like the ones who don't die, like I feel like the bassists a lot of the time have almost very public turmoil, or drummers too occasionally. Like Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, when they were making the X Factor, he was going through like personal losses, divorce, and it was very public and ended up reinforcing what the album was about.
Yeah, it's very public. Maybe it's good for publicity. But this album, Firefly.
Oh
Um, if
yeah,
I'm
John
not
Lawton.
if I'm not mistaken, now they have John Lawton and they have Trevor Bolder.
Yeah, Trevor
And
Bolder is a very common name for this band. Who
yeah,
was that?
I think he stayed with like
Yeah, he stayed with it. He left for a few albums that he wasn't on, but
yeah,
yeah.
he stayed until 2013. Died.
Yeah, he skipped a
Oh,
few, I believe. The first two comeback albums. I know he
I
comes
don't
back
blame
on
him.
Equator and stays up until Outsider.
Wouldn't blame. I would
I
get
mean,
tired
yeah.
of working on mediocre albums in whatever it was in the late '80s.
Yeah,
But
oh,
anyway,
yeah, we'll get to that.
so on the last one, I actually want to. Obviously, Firefly is a really like a big change. group, but High and Mighty, I want to call out name of the game, and Weep in Silence.
Weep in
But yeah,
Silence, yes.
but this one has even less. I mean, I remember it being an okay listen, but it's just it doesn't have like a lot of the ones we've been talking about have star power. Sympathy, Wise Man, they're kind of okay. Fireflies on there, yeah, it's all right. It doesn't take you places. It doesn't take you anywhere.
Yeah.
Worth going to.
I think that's the thing for
Um,
me. Firefly is in one ear, out the other.
really, it's mediocre, but
Yeah. It's not a
a
slog like Wonder World, but
it's not a
actually,
slog, but it's for your right, he feels like
it's nothing.
there's no more. It just feels like a vanilla
Yeah.
for what they are,
In
what they
fact,
could do.
before we continue, I actually think I'm going to move Wonder World down to D. In retrospect,
Okay,
at least on my end.
very good.
Firefly though, I just and like again, this is not knocking John Lawton. He is a very different singer from David Byron. They did have to break him in by giving him this sort of basic bitch hard rock album, but um there's really not much to Firefly, honestly. I don't really have much to say.
These albums get pretty irredeemable. And then I still listen to them because they're just sort of like quixotic. You know, it's like curiosities.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't recommend.
Like John
It's
Lawton's
just like,
more of a Coverdale type singer, I think, too.
oh well, that's just, okay. Well, that is a singer that can be good.
Yeah, but Coverdale gets a really good like Lawton. I just something about him. He doesn't click with Heep, like Coverdale clicked with
Oh,
Purple.
yeah. But yeah, a similar sort of strategy, personnel change.
Yeah.
Anyway, um,
What do you think tier wise about this one?
Firefly, I would say no higher than
I think a low C. No, yeah, low C, low C.
it's like you can listen. It's
It
not like
it's
it's
not
not like
Wonder
a
World.
joke. It's not like yeah, it's not like a joke. Like we could put that in F if we really wanted to. We're being nice. You know, like but for these two, like Return to Fantasy and Firefly, they're like you can actually listen to
Yeah.
rewarding. Okay. Anyway, up next is Innocent Victim.
Innocent Victim. What the hell is this cover?
I actually like the cover, but that's because I meant it. I like all these covers.
I can't tell
Um,
whether those are supposed to be like teeth or if it's supposed to be like drips of
looks like
blood
blood.
that
What's the venom dripping from? It's not the best.
yeah. Or I don't know whether it's saying like innocent victim, like oh I'm the person that's the innocent victim, or it's like, or if the title means like oh the snake is innocent because it looks like
Apparently,
he
those,
doesn't have any
according to
freaking teeth.
Wikipedia, if you believe Wikipedia, apparently those eyes are supposed to be leak. I don't even know
What
what
the
that means.
hell? Oh God, that's weird. How do you feel about this album though?
You know, it's just the same old story, kind of. It's like, you know, you ousted Gary Thing dies, and then you oust David Byron, and you expect to have like an amazing, you know, Mach 2, you know, lineup, and it just doesn't really. And this one, this one's also kind of like it's like probably a hair better than Wonderworld. What I remember,
Yeah, I don't think this
I could
one's.
say D for this.
I don't think this one's D. Granted, I'm being nice, but I don't think this one's D per se. I think this one's a little better than Firefly.
Okay,
And I think the reason why is just is like this one, like they don't get afraid to experiment a little bit. Yes, they are cribbing from they're cribbing from very heavily from something like very early White Snake at times. Um, but I feel like there is a bit more experimentation in this album. I forgot what the name of this song is. Truth be told, I think this is the album I've listened the least to. Um,
it's not one it's a kind of scary looking album, isn't it? Just like staring at you.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
this is released the same year as Firefly, by the way. This one was very rushed out.
the
Uh,
music is really like not creative or like you know it at this point they're sort of going into like a I don't know. I feel like they're kind of rivaling. They're trying to do this back to basics thing where they try to sound like a punk band a little. They just sort of do a lot of downstrokes. It does sound like metal. I'll give them
Yeah.
that, but it just doesn't sound
It's
like it
just
sounds like ear rape a little. So um,
Bleh.
I would have to give. I would personally give it. I think it's sort of like a garbage band out.
You know what actually comes to you know what, I think I realized now, by the way, I looked back at the track list and realized this I confused parts of this album with the next one. And now I remember what
I will
this
say,
album
okay,
is.
one thing that I do like about it is the guitar work is pretty good,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's like
Mick
that's the only
Fox.
thing that's good.
It's
It's
like
always good. Always good. Yeah.
yeah, it's like the one guarantee about a Uriah Heep album is there will be good guitar stuff.
That's kind of real. It's the one thing. It's the one through line of albums.
I don't know
What do you
whether
say though?
this. I think I'm gonna go with D because I did say it was
Yeah, I
better than
think D. Like
Firefly before,
it's
but
starting to sound worse than like a Nazareth. Like Nazareth is already like skating on.
this is like just the most like this and Firefly sort of make up like some of the most generic '70s rock I've ever heard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Some of the
It's like
most generic.
Foghat on coke or a Foghat on.
Foghat.
It's like Foghat trying to do like a metal album.
Oh, so the One Type Saxon covered a Foghat song, right?
Oh dude, I don't even a nightmare.
But then we get to Fallen Angel though, and
This one's okay. This one's better.
I
This one's
think
better.
in this sort of this dark age of Uriah Heep, this is by far the
This
best album.
shimmering candle in the dark.
Yeah, this is a little Blue Oyster Culty parts of this album. I think maybe it's just because the cover reminds me of Fire of
They're trying to be a
Apocalypse.
little more less like stupid, and they're trying to be sophisticated again, which you kind of have to respect. But they just don't really like. They don't really. It's sort of a lie. You don't really believe it.
Yeah,
They are
it's a little
trying.
too calculated.
Yeah, they're really trying to like. You like this art. This album art is like a little too cool. You know what I mean? Like they're trying too hard.
Yeah, but with that being said, though, like this album has a lot more charm to it than Innocent Victim and Firefly.
I could fuck with this album, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying it's like. I mean, the
it's
rhythm is better. You know, the guitar is a little more melodic. And oh,
yeah.
I
Woman
would
of the
give it
Night,
a
I'm
I
gonna
give
give
it
a
a
special
C or
shout out. I think like there are more standout tracks in Woman of the Night, but
the guitar playing changes up style. Sometimes it sounds more like a fucking video game arcade, like Pong noise.
yeah,
Sometimes it sounds a little more like a bluesy sort of like slow dance
it's a little
ballad.
disco-y at sometimes too.
Yeah, yeah, that's
But I'm
exactly
not
what it
knocking
is.
that. Like again,
No, it actually works for what everything else they have to
yeah,
offer.
it's a similar
I
thing to
think
like. Granted, I'm not.
I give it a B. I give it a B because I think
Yeah,
it does have some interesting. It's a good soundscape.
yeah. I think I can kind of compare this. Like, granted, this is me saying this is not like a giant Kiss fan, but I can compare
It
this
doesn't
to
sound like
Dynasty.
Kiss, but it is. It got that disco influence.
Yeah, I'm saying like this is like their Dynasty because like Dynasty was their sort of
Okay.
disco-y influenced album.
Okay. I don't know Kiss that well.
Not me neither. I don't know Kiss that well either, but
Okay.
I'm familiar with some of their stuff. I just know that Dynasty is the disco one, but
It's all well and good.
and then
Up
after
next, this is the
this,
one that I never really.
all right, this is I don't really like to go too. I'm trying to not go too much into history because this is a giant discography, but for this one I kind of have to. This after Fallen Angel, the band imploded. Ken Hensley took complete control, like almost complete creative control over the
Oh,
band. Mick Box is sort of like he was still part of the band, but he sort of like definitely went
headlines.
more into the rafters at that point. Lawton gone, Kerslake gone. Um, Chris Slade ended up joining. He would later be in AC/DC on the Razor's Edge. He would also be part of Asia. Oh, I also forgot to mention that John Wetton left on after High and Mighty. He got replaced by Trevor Boulder, like you said. Actually, I'm not sure if Trevor Boulder was on this album. Um, John Sloman, was the one-time vocalist on this album. He was known for being in Lone Star and what ends up being in Praying Mantis eventually. And I think, in terms of style, he's closer to Byron than Lawton was.
This one, the problem with this album is that they tried too much to sound like, and it's just sort of like a big swing and a miss. It's like they're really trying to be the mothership.
This, I don't even know what. I don't know what to think about this album. This is like.
The
This is.
vocals are so like Robert Plant. Hilarious.
Actually, I think it's more like Glenn Hughes. Like, sort of like Glenn Hughes or like Joran Edman or something. Where it's just like, it's very soulful, but
Well,
I
it
think.
changes. I think in the first side it is more like that, and the side B.
Yeah, side B is more like Zeppelin-y. There's also a few. I do think that there are a few singles from this album, or attached to this album, that are very effective. There's a bit poppier song called "Think It
But
Over."
the singing is all over the place. It
Yeah,
seems a little too like
John
they're
Sloman
trying to do
goes.
rainbow. They're
He
trying
went
to
too
be
far.
like a Dio, and they're not really doing. I give it a C.
Yeah, I think the thing is about this album is
Energy.
that, like, there is a lot of energy to this album, and I
Oh
think
yeah, it's
for
a very
that,
bright,
I do prefer
uplifting
it
album.
over Firefly and even Return to Fantasy.
Let me look and listen to some like off the beaten path tracks from the
Yeah,
Fantasy Firefly in case I might want to reevaluate before we put.
this is just a weird album, though.
It is.
Very incohesive.
Yeah,
Just
I mean, I don't think it's great. Excellent. That's what you agree. It's not. It's like
kind of a what? You cut out.
kind of a stinker album.
Yeah, it's an album.
It's an
It sure is an album. Uh, what an album.
it's not as self indulgent as Firefly, but it's only because it's so energetic.
Yeah,
Lifting.
it's so just weird that I feel
It's a
like
little. It's a very like there. What is this? 1980s when this one.
1980 to the dot. Oh, and I should mention that this album came out like just as the new wave of British heavy metal was about to begin. Funny enough, again, John Sloman ended up way later joining
It's
the
so. It
WBHM
is
band
so
Praying
awkward.
Mantis.
It is so awkward in the British heavy.
Yeah,
I don't really have the words for. It's like a little kid playing with a toy, fucking teen, grinding an axe.
yeah.
Fucking, no, it's like that's the difference.
It's like Conquest is like mixing like it's like mixing it's like mixing milk and pickle juice. Okay, not that disgusting. But I don't know. I give
I'm
it
gonna, I'm gonna say that I think Firefly might be E, and I think also Conquest.
I don't know about Conquest, man. This is a tough one. A really tough one to rank for me. Cuz like I think the thing is it has a sort of high and mighty thing going on where it does have charm. It has energy, but it is not high and mighty. For literally and figuratively. Not
It's
high and
kind of it's
mighty.
kind of cheesy and gross,
Yeah, very much
oily.
like John. I think a lot of it has to do with John Sloman's mismatch, like complete mismatch as a singer. Like he's just like he has like this sort of like very I can't imitate him because my vocals blow, but um he's a very like soulful, but not like unlike Glenn Hughes or Joran Edman or even like more reserved soulful singers
I
like
really
Roland
think I
Kern.
really think your Return to Fantasy is a better album than either Firefly or.
Oh, it's definitely better than. You know what? I think yeah. It's Conquest is not better than Return to Fantasy. Because I think the thing is about Conquest is what's weird is that the main album doesn't
Yeah.
work very well, even if it does have that energy. The best songs on this album are the bonus tracks and the singles and shit. It's very weird.
I mean,
Fascinating.
Wonderworld is kind of bad, but even Wonderworld has moments better than.
I don't know. I
You
don't
know,
know.
it's just it's really hard to rate them because they're all different, shades of mediocre. Right?
Yeah.
It is hard to really be critical. Um,
This is just like if Wonderworld was like bleh, like forgettable, like if that was the, I'm gonna use some movie terms for this, if movie comparisons, if Wonderworld and Innocent Victim are like, if they're like the Godzilla versus Gigan, then Uriah Heep is like the Godzilla's Revenge, where it's like, yes, it is a bomb, but it is like, it is like a rainbow and confetti filled bomb, even if it's still a
okay,
bomb.
you know what? I'm listening. I've been listening to this while we talk. I think you might hate me for this. But I think Innocent Victim and Wonderworld should be in C. Firefly and Conquest are in.
Yeah, I think I support Conquest going down in D. Firefly, honestly, I think all four of them. That's me being mean, though. I'm being
I
really
think
mean.
Wonderworld and Innocent Victim just have so much like weird odds and ends in their songs that they belong in C. Like Return to Fan. I think Firefly and Conquest are like it's like self indulgent pap. It just like it's just it's a little too extreme.
Yeah,
Whereas like
Conquest for sure, but Firefly I just think is a bit basic.
well yeah, and the other it's yeah, that's its problem is it's pared down. I think. And
Yeah,
then Wonderworld is it's got some weird blues stuff going on. It's a little funny. But that's its worst offense. Like it's too.
I feel like it's just a slog. Wonderworld.
It is a slog. Yeah, I mean, but it has like the off filter charm. I guess that would be pretty maybe like D plus. And then Innocent Victim, I think, has actually some good musical moments. It's just not a
It's
little
just,
like it's a little too genre-y. Like they're trying out too many different styles.
yeah, it just
And
feels.
Wonderworld's a slog, but it's this sort of fabulously awkward slog. Um, I just think they're low C. With Innocent Victim might even be a high C. I'm evaluating. And Return to Fantasy is a C. Yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
Return of Fantasy is definitely like a full on C. Uh, maybe I'm being a
Firefly
little.
and Conquest, I think, are very with varying shit.
I think Conquest. You know what's crazy by the way about this is that we're just talking shit about these last few albums, Sans Fallen Angel. Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny that we're talking so much shit about this, but to be honest with you, this I we haven't even gotten to my least favorite Uriah Heep album yet. Like these are down there, but I think like it definitely
I
gets better.
honestly, Innocent Victim has like melodies that kind of. It's not like it's the guitar is very good. Like I mean, I think it's a C, and I think Wonderworld might be a D, maybe a C, but I think it's better than Firefly.
You want to know,
And then
guys?
let's look at so where do you want to keep them? Because like
I think maybe I'll be willing to compromise, move Innocent Victim up to C, but I don't know about
okay,
Wonderworld.
Wonderworld, yeah, Wonderworld might be like a D plus.
Yeah. I don't know about like Wonderworld, Conquest. Conquest is weird. Fireflies. Thankfully, it
Let's
gets better though because now we have a big heaping baby boy. Because after Conquest, John Sloman left, Chris Slade left, Ken Hensley left, Trevor Boulder left, leaving only Mick
they all left
Box.
after Conquest, really?
Yeah, the entire band pretty much like Mick Box was pretty much had the rights, but it was only
Oh,
himself. He ended up getting Chris Lake back from Ozzy's band, who brought along Bob Daisley from Ozzy's band because Ozzy and Sharon are not, they don't always work the best with musicians that aren't Ozzy. Um, so they ended up joining, and a singer Peter Golby, who's a little Foreigner esque, but basically to me he's like a much improved John Lawton, like a more vocally powerful John Lawton.
all right. So I'm gonna put Wonderworld in high D, and then Firefly, and then Conquest.
Yeah,
Maybe Conquest above Firefly. I think.
I'll move Innocent Victim up to C. I think
This Victim's C minus or whatever.
not higher than Return to Fantasy, but
The Return of Fantasy is is more solid. It's more cohesive. And then up next, I guess, is Abominog, which,
Abominog.
like you said, it doesn't have Ken Hensley, right?
Yeah, from here on out, no more Ken Hensley. This is John Sinclair on keyboards. He would later do Ozzy Osbourne's. He would do No Rest for the Wicked. Um, I'm not sure. He might
This
have been
is an
on No More
awkward
Tears
album though.
too.
It's kind of it's a good one. But it's like, David Byron isn't even dead yet, and then Hensley's not in it. Like, how good could it be? And it ends up being okay. Like, it's respectable.
I think
It's just
for an
sort of
album,
heartbreaking.
I think for an album lacking so many of the major players, this is shockingly strong of an album.
Surprisingly, yeah.
I'm not. If there's one thing, like I personally love this album, and I know I haven't really gotten into like quite the meat of it yet, but I think this is an A personally.
It's kind of a dancey album. It starts out really powerful.
I just think if there's one thing, there's a bit too many cover songs on this album.
Who've lessened the night.
I really love.
I think the side B just kind of it's sort of a slog.
I think side B starts off kind of weak, but then once we get to like Sell Your Soul, it's like, oh yeah, and Prisoner even too. Like once we get to Prisoner, like it's like it gets better, and then Sell Your Soul is like, yes, Think It Over is a very powerful pop rock song too. Just
I like how
Abominog is just so fresh, and
I like how the image is literally just like.
like
I'll give it an A, B.
I think an
feel
A.
like I'll give it a B personally, but we can compromise to A minus.
Yeah, because like I think just this album has so much life to it, and like there's even like this album is a bit more metal, I'd say, than previous albums. This did release at the height of the new wave of British heavy metal, after all. You're right. He did take
It's 82, March, early 82. So it's like what, 82? That's pretty early.
Yeah, I roughly around the time of Number of the Beast.
That's actually like compared to what the fucking they're doing with Conquest. It's way more like astute. Like Conquest was, well, you're releasing this. Like when you look at like Iron Maiden and Priest and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Saxon, and you're like, what are you guys doing? Like, yeah, Saxon just released like two amazing albums, and you guys did Conquest.
And then you just shout out the album of all time.
But yeah, and then they do Abominog, and it kind of makes up for it. It's
yeah.
Like still, I was like, gosh, it was like 2 years later.
And it's like I will say though that now that like on one hand though, with if there is any upside to Ken Hensley to Ken Hensley being gone, it's Mick Box gets to get back to the front.
It's funny that he took so much control over Conquest, and then
and then just because the thing is he took so much control over. I think he was very controlling over Fallen Angel as well, and most of the Lawton albums, but with Conquest, what's funny is that he had like all this control, and then while they were performing it, he kept butting heads with Slowman.
Okay, so tell me about Slowman. I don't understand where this guy counts.
So Slowman's so he's like a very soulful, like very like he's from a band called Lone Star, which had an album called Firing on All Six, and he was on that. It's basically like a 70s rock, like a pretty basic 70s rock album in my opinion.
Blues rock.
Kind of. I think it's more just sort of like generic hard rock from the 70s. Or even just rock.
Really generic.
Yeah. Slowman would end after he left he's a bit of an enigma. After Conquest, he made a very interesting solo album in the late 80s. Very poppy and sugary, and I don't really know how to feel about it. But after that, he would sort of make guest appearances on other people's work. He would join Praying Mantis for an album, and I think he did an excellent
job. How did he get into Heep? Like, who left in order for him? Who did he replace?
Lawton.
Oh, he became the singer. Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's the
shit.
singer.
He's
Yeah.
singing Abominog too.
No, he did not. That was just Peter Golby on vocals.
So they have a different singer for like in 3 different albums.
Yep. Peter Golby would stay around for a bit though. He's on 2 more albums after this.
That's rough, dude. They didn't. Abominog's pretty good for like having like other news.
Yeah, with all this
Their fourth
bullshit that
singer, right?
happened, like,
Fourth. Isn't that legitimately their fourth singer?
yeah,
So that's pretty good.
and then their third in a few years. And then I think the fact that they made an album, and with all these cover songs on it too, the fact that they made an album this cohesive is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's go to Head First.
I mean, Abominog's a great like. It's a repeat. It's a good party album. Yeah, I mean, it has to be high praise. Head First is also kind of like that. Head First is a strong follow up.
Yeah,
Head First is not probably not as like interesting, folks at home, but it definitely is like surprisingly good album considering all the latest disappointment.
yeah, I think it's a very confident one in a way. Hello.
It's got a lot of weird synth stuff. It's very firmly in the '80s, with kind of science fiction tones.
Yeah, there's a few.
But the intro, the first song is like odd and it's starting to sound a little bit like a little too '80s.
It's a little foreigner-esque, this album.
Or yeah,
And like Peter Golby especially, like his voice like the other side of midnight. It's just very like wow, hello 80s. So yeah, I think it is dated. I like this album, but I think it's more of a soft spot than anything.
so it's unusual that they made this album because it's an effective like '80s generic album. It's effective, but it's only interesting as a curiosity because Heep did it.
Yeah.
There's like if any other band made this album out, I don't know if it would.
I think I think it also kind of shows in its financial performance. I know Abominog was a sizable hit, but Head
Okay.
First did just okay, and it ended up getting them dropped from the record label. Which was actually no, they didn't get dropped. Bronze Records went out of business.
Oh, that's even weirder. That's like is that worse? I feel like that's worse.
Oh no, they got dropped from.
And went out of business.
They got dropped because of this album, and they filed for bankruptcy like a year later.
So both. That's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, it's current. It's currently what was Bronze Records is currently owned by BMG.
Okay. Well, it could have considering that they just like tanked after this album dropped released. The album itself could have been worse.
Yeah,
There
this
were no
album's it's
things,
not
but I
bad.
don't think the album is a great album. It's just sort of it's got this 80s veneer of like happiness and uplifting cheese.
Yeah,
Just
and
it's sort of a state. It's sort of like it's sort of
it's the songwriting. I think that
it's got a
contributes to that.
still water quality.
Yeah,
I
it's.
mean,
I think a B though is fair for Head First because it's
is
like,
it's
how do you think? Where do
do
you
you like
think?
the style? Do you like the style?
Um, what style? Like the music style or the
This sort
visuals?
of like 80s dusty bar band sort of.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I just think that
Yeah,
like
I mean, I give it a B
I
or
think
C. I get
for
C. I C plus.
I think a low B maybe. I
For
had a
me,
Sweet Freedom, but not
the
much
reason
higher
I
than
give it
that.
a plus is that it's kind of it's got the same style. It's not my favorite style. And then it's just really kind of indulgent after that. They're not doing anything that creative. It's
Yeah,
overproduced. It sounds a little overproduced, right? It's just sort of it's got this glossiness.
actually I think on this sound the production's probably the best part of it because it's like everything sounds
That's part
balanced.
of
I
it.
can hear the bass. That is something I can hear the bass. I can't really say that about um the next album.
It's the only thing that's good is the production. The actual instrumentation is like
It's
boring.
fine. You know what? Yeah, okay, high C. I think I'll go high C.
Thank you.
But then we got Equator.
Oh, that
Uh,
one I actually that okay. Weirdly enough, I was listening to. I kind of dig.
this
You're probably
this
going the other way with it.
honestly, this is what lost. I think this used to be my least favorite album from this band. Now I have no idea what happened. I went back and listened to it, and something clicked.
It's
I'm not
pop oriented, but it kind of works. It's
unlike Head First, which I feel like was just sort of, it's just a
superficial.
normal poppy. Like this is like just oh they go. This is like Saxon's Destiny. Not as good. Uh, but this is like Saxon's Destiny in a way they fully commit to the sound and it works.
They fully commit to this new sound, and then for some reason, it just works.
Yeah,
It
this
just proves
is
you how adaptable they. It proves how adaptable.
yeah.
I'd give it a B. I
I
mean,
think a
it's not
B
like
too. Honestly, I really like this album. It's not perfect. I think the songwriting on this album though is a lot better than Head First. Like I know
yeah.
Rockarama is very, very, very cheesy,
Also, like
but
they figured out if they sustain the singing, it just sounds more meaningful. Like because in the other in Head First, they just it would like sing the notes keep changing up and down, and it's like you just keep the note, like sustain the note.
yeah,
And then they just kept like moving, guitars in and out of the sections. And it's like, no, have like the guitars. They're trying so hard to like not have anything stay put, like be ephemeral.
yeah.
It's just not. They're going for this ethereality thing where it's like, oh, it's the '80s now and everything has to be glossy.
Meanwhile,
But
with Equator, like
they just
Equator is a glossier production, I
they're too
think.
light. They were too light on the touch. And with Equator, they for whatever reason it's glossier, but
It
they
works.
realize that they can just kind of they can stick the notes in place and keep and that the sound will just do its job.
Well,
That's what happened.
I think
It
there's an
has a very
explanation for that for this album because like after Bronze went under, they got signed to CBS,
oh that could
and
be.
they had so much money put behind the production that they were
How
allowed
many
to do
albums did they do
this.
with Bronze? How many albums? Yeah, they probably just
Everything
put.
else they did with Bronze, everything Head First and before was with Bronze.
Oh, so all their classic.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay, so
and
Bronze. That's kind of sad. But then CBS really like footed the bill. It funneled all this money and
yeah,
it had
it,
leeway all of a sudden.
I think while it paid off, I think artistically, I think this album is much better songwriting. There's a song at the end called "Night of the Wolf" that I've always really liked personally.
Okay.
There's a song called "Bad Blood" in the beginning. I think it's just very strong '80s rock.
I think it's a B plus or B minus.
I think a B plus. I think that's granted. That is me being just like maybe it is coming off of the wow. This album is actually good and not the worst like I first thought it was. But
It's not like a perfect album or like a banger album, but it's a very like connected, kind of soulful album
it's just a good
for
listen.
a good
Nice
listen.
listen.
Yeah, it's almost a little too easy listening, but it does work. It's effective.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the
also notable is after Head First, the bassist Philip Daisley left to rejoin Ozzy Osbourne's band, only to leave again, and they ended up getting Trevor Bolder back for Equator.
that's good. No, that actually is really good. Finally got me.
Wouldn't matter too much though because this album Equator did horrible financially, got them dropped from CBS
Really?
almost immediately.
I had one album with
Um,
CBS and
and
it was
Peter
good.
Golby
And
left the music industry. So ended up having to look for a new singer.
for good.
And John Sinclair left too to join Ozzy, the
That's so
keyboardist.
depressing. It's so depressing. Did he leave completely? Like, or did he leave like
Who? The
Peter Golby?
keyboardist?
Peter Golby.
Oh, Peter Golby. He quit the music industry straight up.
He do. He just became like an engineer. I mean,
I have no idea what happened. I think actually what's funny is I ended up like looking up like Peter Golby. What happened to him? Apparently there was an interview done recently with that. I didn't watch it, but apparently he's alive. This is not a complete mystery like the first Deep Purple singer, where he just withdraws from all public life.
it's sad, man. It's really sad.
Um,
I mean, how can you give up on music? To be fair, they kind of like raked him through the holes because they're like, hey, we're at the weakest we've ever been on these albums. The albums don't perform charts,
Yeah.
don't sell. And then he's like, and they're like, oh, maybe you're not a good singer. And he's like, yeah, fuck you guys. Like, I could see how he would just put up with Box or someone.
Yeah.
Kerslake.
I think
Uh
I think
oh.
he
Anyway, so
yeah.
what's up next on the
Raging
deck?
Silence.
Okay, this one I don't think I've even listened to.
Okay, so this is the first one with Bernie Shaw on vocals. They plucked him out from I believe at the time they hired him, he was part of Praying Mantis. I know I keep bringing up that band, but I just love Praying Mantis so much, man. I they're my comfort band.
We
But
can review them at some point because it sounds like you're like their expert. You could probably write the
I
book.
the thing is there's not that much info on. I had to do like deep digging. This is Praying Mantis was the first my first them and Saxon's Crusader were my first exposure to new wave of British heavy metal.
Weird.
Um,
Kind of roundabout, but I
yeah,
get it.
and it's funny
I
because
get
the
it.
one album they made for the new wave of British heavy metal they never tried to replicate that sound. They went more into like pump rock and uh like almost like AOR power metal sometimes, but that's what got me sort of hooked on them because before I started listening to metal more, I was more into like AOR and hard rock, like almost not like Michael, whatever the fuck his name is, that guy with the long hair. Oh, Michael Bolton. I don't like him, but
Listen to Mike. Dude, you sound like you're like a 50-year-old person.
oh no, I don't fuck. I said I don't. No, no, I don't.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, but I was into like, and at that point, like Praying Mantis, I feel like was a good like sort of transitionatory band, and
Yeah.
from there on, like I got into Iron Maiden through them. Weirdly enough, I don't know why.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I would expect you just kind of go for Iron Maiden.
Yeah. Before
Yeah,
that,
okay.
yeah, and like through them, like I consider them like they were my gateway drug.
I do think this Raging Silence album, despite being Bernie Shaw's debut, the band, and he's been the consistent singer until now, up until
Yeah,
now. Like,
and we also got a
yeah,
new keyboardist too, Phil Lanzon. Lanzon is the new keyboardist. He's still in the band.
I do think this album is not brilliant, not good.
Okay,
I
I'm gonna
mean,
be totally honest with you. Because you would think that like because of the fact that this lineup has remained consistent from here all the way up until Sonic Origami,
yeah.
that you would think that they just made the best album ever this first time around. And
Right?
while I do like a lot of the Uriah Heep albums after this, Raging Silence is my least favorite Uriah Heep album.
Yeah, that's what the sense I'm getting too. I think Voice on My TV is the best one. Even that's kind of like a throwaway. Oh,
I don't think I like a single song on this album.
Voice on My TV is like it's sort of offbeat charm. It's a good one, but it's not redeeming.
I
I
think
would give
if
them a D.
I think if anything, Blood Red Roses is okay.
Oh, I think I disagree. I think the voice on the TV is Blood and Roses starts to be good, and then the fucking vocals pick up, and it just is way too like hand with it.
I think the thing is that like
Um,
Bernie Shaw, like earlier on, he tried to do like on this album, he tries to do like this tough guy voice,
okay.
and it's like Uriah Heep, like come the fuck on, like
It does kind of. This one feels all over the place, and
this is their hair metal album, and this is not shitting on hair metal. I like myself some
I
Dokken,
think
but
I think a lot of it was hair metal in a sense, but this one is starting to kind of it feels like they're trying to. I don't know. You're right that they're really going for like the other ones are more like dance '80s dance music pop. They're trying
yeah,
to be a little more glamorous. This one they're not trying to be glamorous anymore. They are trying to be like hair metal.
it's like yeah,
But
they're not trying to
it
be like
doesn't.
glamorous or pop rocky, but they still have the songwriting for it, so it just doesn't work.
Yeah, they still have that sort of official thing. And it really feels like they're just skating on thin. I don't know that it doesn't. I am surprised they're able even to get. What I mean, like after everything they've been through, like I'm surprised that they can still get record deals.
Yeah.
It really is kind of crazy,
I'm
and because their laurels at this point to me seem kind of scam.
I
Like
think I'm not
maybe maybe
sure. I think they're part of
maybe
Legacy for this record
I
label.
think maybe in the '80s people were just so into rock and and like the idea of Uriah Heep having a new album was just sort of appealing enough that people were like, all right, let's just sign him. But like
Yeah.
the track record in this point, what '86 is not good anymore.
It's
I
like
don't know
it's a
how
bit
they're
dodgy. Like you could like yes, once in a while you get an
dodgy.
Equator or an Abominog, but for the most part, you were expecting a head
It's a
first.
gamble. Like it's not a good gamble. But I guess if you're just like to respect their, I mean, at this point, like, what Kerslake's still alive.
Oh no,
It's only two members.
Kurslik passed away.
Oh, on this one,
Oh yeah, on this one he's alive. Yeah, it's
did he
him and
die
Trevor
after
Bolder.
Origami?
He died. No, he died. He retired after Origami and
Tried
died. I
after.
think the same year as Ken Hensley. Weirdly enough.
That was right. They died really close. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you don't even have like the really just going off of the Obama Vader, I guess. I mean, I guess those '80s albums were passable.
I
Like
think
if you just wanted a passable band to make more passable music, then you get.
you get head first, which is head first.
What's the song even called? Like it's just it's really like unwelcome. What's the album called again?
Which one? Wait.
Raging Silence.
Oh, this one,
Raging.
Raging Silence. Yeah.
It's so tedious. Anyway, well,
You said
it does
D
have at least
before.
one good. It has one good song. I'll give it D.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you, and
It's
this
some
is
good
me
sections.
being
Section.
like really. This might be being a bit mean. I think F for Raging Silence, and this is their
I think it's
one
just
and
a
only
totally
F.
plastic, hollow album.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I
is
mean,
hollow and inconsistent at the same time, but not in a charming way, like High and Mighty or
I'll give it an F
Conquest.
plus.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like this album. I don't like at all.
I'll give it a D plus because I like that one song. It's got good sections. You can give it an F, and then we can agree on F plus.
Yeah, we'll figure it
Oh,
out.
great. F plus.
From here on out, though, I have much nicer things to say.
Different World. Is that the next one?
Yeah, another. It's another album in like a similar style, but I think they got rid of a lot of that cock rock. Whoa.
Rock Rock or whatever.
Yeah, they got rid of a lot of that like cock rock. Um,
Vado.
that
What do you call
cock rock. Like
it? Like,
songwriting. I feel like they got rid of a lot of that on this album. Like
oh,
this.
okay.
Um,
It's
but
more like sophisticated and nuanced.
a little more. It's very much still like it still has like a rougher sound to
They're
it,
not
like
trying to be
Raging
White Snake.
Silence. But
They're not trying to be
it's
White Snake
yeah,
at
they're
this
not
point.
like not quite. I think it is a lot more keyboard driven now. Like they have like this
Almost
sort
doesn't.
of
It
like
sounds like
that
soft
Hammond
rock.
organ,
It's like fucking
that Hammond organ
competitive.
sound, like on like that was so present on Deep Purple
It's
albums.
like John Cougar Mellencamp a little.
I think
Different world.
I think
Yeah.
unlike Raging Silence, I think this album is much stronger songwriting, even if it's not perfect and it's not 100% consistent. I really like Cross That Line and Stand Back. They even get a little bit metal at
Different
times.
world. Different world. Dude, this it sounds like like really soft though. That's the only problem. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's a little subtle, but it's a little too subtle, a little too.
I
Subtle.
think they are trying a lot harder with like not trying. I'm saying like they this is I think a big improvement over Raging Silence, even if it is still not. I'm not. It's not an A tier album, but I think a B for this
I'll
one.
go. I have a heterodox view. I think This one, everything that's bad about Raging Silence, it doesn't isn't bad on this. It's got the opposite flavor of bad, where it's like they're trying too hard to be like coy and sophisticated. Mellow. It's like '90s, and it just sounds like it really sounds like kind of limp dick. Whereas the other one, yeah, it was like like you said, cock rock, but at least they like kind of knew the formula. This one doesn't really even have a formula. I guess it does have a formula. But it has like the exact opposite formula. It's like inside out.
Yeah,
It's vaginal.
but I think
So
I feel
I
like
think
the
they're
thing is
both
about Raging Silence. Like Raging Silence is at least like it's cock rock, but it's flaccid. This is
yeah, fair.
this one at least this one has life to it, but just not all the way
This is
through.
vaginal life. I mean, okay, whatever. We'll give it a higher ranking.
I'm
I
torn.
won't give it a D and 7.5. All right.
I don't know. I'm torn on this one because I think on a overall thing, it's a C. I think it's not a
Yeah, I can see
slog to
that.
me like Wonderworld is, but
It's actually pretty smooth songwriting,
yeah. On
and the
the other
production's
hand,
good.
I don't. I think a C, honestly.
No,
Instead,
I respect that.
not.
It's
I
it's a
think
different sound for them. It's way different.
I'll put it over
It's
Headfirst and Innocent Victim, but maybe not over Return to Fantasy. I'm saying that a lot today.
it's definitely not better than their original sound, but it's kind of okay,
It is there. It's
floating in the middle.
sure, sure is there.
Just kind of a little too airy for me.
Yeah, the production is the worst part about this album, for sure. It's just very like lots of reverb.
Yeah,
But like on
it's
the Equator, on something like Equator, that worked, where it's a lot
worked. Yeah.
punchier. But here, it's just a little too airy.
Okay, well, what year was it? It was
91.
yeah, all that '90s like hard rock just it really wasn't sustainable. You had to be like Pearl Jam to get it right.
Yeah, you had to
Even
be.
then, the Temple of the Dog, or even then,
Honest,
it was.
I'm really not a grunge person. I'll say that
But
straight up.
yeah, that's the
But
thing is that grunge is like, what is it? Is it even rock music?
I'm
It's almost
glad that
not.
Uriah Heep never tried grunge because I think if they did,
This is about as close as it gets, though.
yeah, it's a bit
It's starting
more
to sound like you know what reminds me? It reminds me of that band for them.
extreme. You said?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Nuno Betancourt, More Than Words. Just because that kind of like
Or like mid
long
'90s Van
hair.
Halen,
Oh yeah, it's got that
like
like late
ballads.
say that Sammy Hagar kind of.
Yeah, or Van Halen 3 that had the extreme singer on it.
Really?
Yeah, that was an album. They God so help me, never let Eddie Van Halen sing a song by himself ever again.
You like? Are you? Do you like Sammy Hagar?
Yeah, I like him as a vocalist. I think he's pretty fun. Uh,
Okay.
but I think I think that his work with Van Halen is a little dodgy. I really like the Fuck album for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Um, the rest of his stuff is
Well,
kind of hit or miss though.
Unlawful Cardinal Allen. That one.
For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, like that one has a bit more like a metal punch to it. Judgment Day is like it's straight up metal.
Right now, yeah. I mean, but that's like way better than this one though.
Oh
The
yeah, no,
one with
this is better than Different World for sure. Like the Fuck album, I think is up there for Van Halen.
okay.
Like not Different World is a bit of a
Well, it's
mess.
kind of trying to be. It wants to be that. It's just not that
Yeah,
close at all. Yeah.
yeah. It's trying to return the balls back to Uriah Heep, and it only half works. After Raging Silence, you know, the castration that was Raging Silence. All right. Okay.
All right. The next one is also very different bend in the road. Actually, it's kind of refreshing. Face of Raging Silence and Different World. At the same time, it's not a good album. It's like a fucking bossa nova album, basically. Dry Heap. What do you call it? Day in the Light
Sea of Life.
of Life. Yeah, it's really like
It's
a bland sort of trying to be this desert island, you know, Christmas album, wherever the fuck. It feels like they're trying to be prog. Uh, They don't really want
Yeah,
to put that much effort. They don't have energy to perform on stage or something, so they're just mellow.
I think this album is. I think the cover is yet another. Wow, look, another a Roger
No,
Dean
that's the sad
cover,
thing.
a
Roger
Roger
Dean
Dean
cover.
cover, a bit focusing on a vast landscape. How many of those are there?
But the
Um,
sad part is that this is, I think, the third one, and they did it twice in 1972, and it both worked. This one, it doesn't work, but the art's still good. It's like
yeah, it's
I
Roger
mean,
Dean.
I don't understand how you can have good album art and then let the album just stink.
Yeah, I really hate it when that happens because like the thing is, the art makes you want to make it work a lot of the time. And sometimes it's the opposite. Like Iron Maiden's Dance of Death album had such awful fucking cover art that I didn't realize how great of an album it was until I actually listened to it.
Okay, one thing I will say about this album though is that they are consciously trying to return to form.
Yeah,
That is, I approve of that effort, but they don't really get there.
they don't stick the
It,
landing.
they don't. Yeah, they don't crash. They crash land. They don't really.
I think there's.
Ship doesn't stink.
I think with that being said, there is one song on this album that is probably one of my favorite Uriah Heep songs.
Okay,
And
what is
that
it?
is the opening track, Against All Odds. I think it's very like driving and surprisingly kind of heavy, like very energetic. It's got like this sort of like this like that's a very Bernie Shaw thing. I feel like this is where Bernie Shaw comes into his own as a
Okay,
vocalist.
this is kind of a tight. Yeah, like he
It's
slams the chords and the drums like fill in real quick.
yeah, it's very
It's
tight, energetic, and just it's so goddamn cool. And I hate the fact that the rest of this album doesn't live up to it. That opening, it's another
So
Return to Fantasy
it's
thing.
trying to be everything all at once. Everywhere, it's trying to be everything everywhere all at once.
Everything, everywhere, all at once. But in
By the way,
reality, it ends up being
wasn't that movie for stupid and
what?
like Banshees of Inisherin is like a smart person movie, and then everything everywhere all at once. I don't know. Maybe you liked it
Nah,
more.
that's I like them both, but I like both those movies. So
It was so busy. It was just busy. It was
sometimes I
all. It
like
was like
busy shit.
amusing.
My favorite movie is pure
Just
fucking
there.
chaos. Gremlins 2.
What's your favorite movie? The Gremlins 2 one? Really?
Okay. Yeah, I know. I probably have lost all credibility by, by fucking saying that, but I swear to God.
New Batch.
Yeah, it's only I really like it because it's like a live action Looney Tunes cartoon. Like I've never really seen.
This one's like it's actually cute, Whereas like everything everywhere all at once, it wasn't really like.
It's a little
First of
too
all, I didn't.
busy.
It was too busy, and the other thing was it wasn't busy enough in some ways. Like they were in an office, like half the movie with them arguing in an office with Jamie Lee Curtis.
But yeah, arguing in
Oh,
office with
yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis and Kihui Kwan, which, by the way, very happy that he's back. But
Just who, by the way, was unrecognizable. Who the fuck was that guy?
I
Right.
only knew it
So
was him from The Voice.
dude. It was like I was getting like liver spots watching it. I swear, like it was just. And then like the plot, there was no real plot device. The whole thing was like she was going in. Her daughter was. Is that what happens?
What? You
The
cut out for a sec.
whole plot device didn't make any sense. It was like there was no real plot device. She was going insane because her daughter was a lesbian. That doesn't.
I don't
Is that
think
what
it was that. I
happens?
think it was just sort of like I think that it's just trying to get her to be out for the grandfather, who is not who isn't really into that shit.
Okay.
Um, but
I didn't add up for me. Like I was like,
it's a
why
little
is she why is
the
she
plot's a little too busy.
teleporting from one dimension XYZ dimension back
Yeah.
over like a family feud? I understand that there's a lot of like it's very heady for her, but like literally changing dimensions and then like like recapitulating events in her life, it just didn't work. No, it
I,
just I kind of get like maybe if she was asleep while she was dreaming, those things were happening. While she's awake and have like she's just having a fucking like even like a psychotic break would end. So it didn't. It was really kind of they were taking a lot of liberties with like their credulity. You know what I mean? Like do you know what that word means? Like
yeah.
the they were expecting me to believe a lot about someone's experience, which I don't think it was too much to ask for me to believe about someone that
I
should be
th-
going through all those weird things. You know,
yeah.
I was it science fiction? I thought it was a science fiction film. It wasn't
Yeah,
really a
that I
science.
think I agree. That is a science fiction film.
It was no, it was no, it was supposed to be a science fiction. It was. 'Cause I saw it with my parents. They were telling me it was a science fiction film. All right, we'll go see the science fiction. And then it
And then it
ended up
ends
being
up
what it
being
was.
that.
It had some science fiction aspects. It wasn't enough for me to be like, wow, this is fiction. It was like, oh, what is this? Comedy? It's like a music video comedy. I didn't get it. Didn't get it. Don't get me wrong. I liked it more than Avatar. Avatar was like, but like
Avatar: The Way of Water. I think that movie is goofy as fuck, and no one talks about it. No one talks
that
about how
movie.
goofy it is.
That movie. And the problem with that movie is that like the parts were all good. Then like the sum was a disaster. Like
The
I can
sum,
see it.
it feels a little Saturday morning cartoonish. I think it's
Oh,
better than
yeah.
the first one, but
Yeah, you're kind of right. It is sort of better than the first one, but even then, it's like tells you the first one was good in a way because the first one had really good character development and sort of exposition.
it had good
All
world
that shit.
building. I
The
think
world building was really good in the first.
in
Whereas
this
this
one, I
one
think the
had
world building is there still, but I just think it's a little too close to humans. In this one, like, yep, this is a Save the Whales movie.
yeah, oh yeah, it was some Canadian felt like a fucking like a
Saturday morning cartoon.
yeah funded by Greenpeace exactly. Anyway, let's go back to it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, so Sea of Life, Sea of Life. Yeah, where would you put this?
I actually like that it's as retarded as it is. I give it a C just because it's like it's a concept album to me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on it being a C. Oh,
It's
Sea of
honestly
Light.
not.
Oh, it's Sea of Light. Fuck. Not Sea of
Honestly, it's
Life.
not even a concept album. It's just like it's just sort of like it's like this weird mirage, and they're this is really did they really make this? I guess they did. It sounds like them. Okay,
Yeah, I think
just, it
outside of
does
it,
it doesn't really have a definition.
I think outside of Against All Odds, it's just there.
But honestly, I was going into the listening to these albums thinking they would all be dog shit compared to like the first. But there's a lot of good stuff in this last 10 years, last 20 years. This next one I like, and the one after it I like, and their latest album I kind of like. Oh,
Oh yeah, I can't wait to talk about these because I think from here I don't really have that much.
expectations.
No, no, I mean here's the thing, right? From here I didn't have too much expectation when I was first going through all these, but truth be told, some of these albums coming up I really fucking love. There is one in particular that I really really want to talk about, and we'll get to it eventually. But Sonic Origami is up next.
That one is kind of cool.
Yeah,
Um, so at this point, I think that they're realizing that they kind of have to like out themselves as a prog band. Whether or not it's true to who they are, I don't know. They're sort of like, yeah, we're a psychedelic prog band from '70s. That's still who we are. Like it's sort of like a facelift. That's not really what they are, but that's kind of how they're styling themselves. For my part, I don't really mind it. I am a little really what they say they are. Do you follow me?
yeah. I just think the thing about Sonic Origami is that it's like I think to
Did you hear
me
anything I said? Did you hear anything I said?
part of it was cut out, but I did
Okay,
get the last part.
it feels like they they had like 2 decades, 3 decades, right, of like different types of things. And if you
Yeah,
followed them, you know that they kind of crashed and burned, and then they did this like revamp that sort of had this aquatic album that just did. They're sort of like grasping at straws for new concepts. It feels to me like they're trying to style themselves as a prog band. They never really were a true. rock band. They're kind of styling themselves. To me, it feels like like really good plastic surgery, but I don't think it's authentic. What do you think?
Yeah, it doesn't feel 100% authentic. I think I definitely agree with you on that end. It does feel like, oh, now you're trying to do this.
Yeah, right.
It's a bit late, and I mean clearly that did affect them at the time because at that point Uriah Heep would go 10 years without recording a new album after this. This would also again also the last of Leakers like, um, but the band would
Sonic Origami. Yeah, Sea of Light and Sonic Origami. If it were like any other band, I'd probably like him more. But because it's Uriah Heep, I just expect better. This sort of
I think
that.
my problem. I think the thing is about Origami is it's a bit of a double-edged sword for me though. Because, like, on one hand, I think it is an improvement over Sea of Life, which I thought was an improvement over Different World. But I think this is the biggest improvement of them overall. I think they're not quite back on their feet yet. That wouldn't happen quite yet. But I think there are a lot of great stuff in this. There's a lot of great stuff in this album. Between Two Worlds, the opening track is actually dedicated
And
to
the weird thing
Byron.
is the album covers look very prog. Some it looks like David Gilmour's on an island. Just music still has that kind of like lingering sort of like folky English folk sound.
Yeah,
It really is not like a. It doesn't. It's sort of a deceptive album.
yeah.
Um,
It's a very, like, journeyman. Um, like, I don't really know how to describe this, honestly. The
sounds like they're
sound of
trying to be
this.
a cross between like Robert Plant's solo career and Journey.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the journey does come from Bernie Shaw. He sounds like the guy from Triumph, who sounds a bit like a little like Steve Perry mixed with Geddy Lee.
Rick Ellsworth, yeah, I guess so.
But I think like on this is a very emotional. I want to say like very emotional delivery on a lot of the songs. The Golden Palace especially. Though again, I think there's a lot of great stuff in this album. I think the reason why Um, I think this is B, but I don't think it's a very high B per se. I think it's a bit middle to low. And I think my main problem with this, besides being too late and a little insincere, is that it's really long.
It's a long ass album, and it is insincere. It feels like they're trying to be Roger Waters, but then they sound more like Journey.
Yeah,
Then they don't pull it off,
it's very
and
too.
and obviously like the fucking like vibe they're going for with their with not just the concept art, but also like the album art, but also just the sound. Like the sound and the album art don't really match. But even then, they're both they're both way off from what from your. Uh,
Yeah,
and I just feel like this album is shot in the dark, like a last ditch effort.
and it
Of like,
does kind of feel like that though. I do feel like that. It has a little bit of that last ditch like, please listen to us.
it feels desperate. I'd give it an F,
Oh,
maybe
an
a D,
F.
maybe a D,
I mean, I wouldn't go that.
maybe.
I think it's that. I think I'm gonna go down to a C. I don't know though. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah,
whether it's better than Sea of
you
Light or
really
not.
like it.
What?
You really like it. It doesn't even have a vibe.
I feel like I think there is a sort of vibe to it, but I think the thing is what this album is. I used to like this album more. This is one of the few that I had known beforehand. That I'd really known beforehand. But the thing is,
Okay.
their Chaos in Color, the newest album, is going for a very introspective, like Sonic Origami's a very introspective album, and
Okay.
lyrically at least. Chaos in Color is also a very introspective album lyrically, but I think that album does the music so much better to the point where Sonic Origami is a little redundant. If that makes any sense.
But it just doesn't sound like music. I don't know. It sounds like they're just sort of like going through the motion.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. I'm not. I'm not. It's not. I don't. It doesn't make me feel anything. Unless I read like the liner lyric. I don't think. I don't know. would give it. I mean, obviously, compared to a lot of music, it's probably fine. But it doesn't. It's not remarkable.
It reminds
You
me
want
of uh for lack of for I know I feel like we brought this up many times in the past, but it reminds me a little bit of the Faceless Coverdale Page album.
was it
A
that
little bit, not
one?
in sound, but in terms
That
of
one had
like
a little more character. I mean, that one, yeah, that one was like soupy. It
very
was also,
soupy and weird. And I'm not. A lot of people like to blame Coverdale for that, but it's a
you know
little.
what it was? It was like a middle-aged man like trying to like be romantic all of a sudden, sexy and stuff, and it's just sort of like hard to believe.
Yeah,
You kind of feel bad for him.
except instead this time it's not Heap trying to be sexy. It's okay, I didn't want to think about that. It's
But
Heap try. I just put the words Heap try to be sexy. I said that, and I am never
they're
gonna think
trying to be
about that again.
profound. No, they're trying to be
It,
profound though.
yeah, instead of trying to be profound, and it just I feel like they do this better later, and without trying, without feeling like this is a little
Yeah, like
try
you
hard.
said, with the latest album does it better. So in light of that, I feel like it's a deep. Maybe on balance, like in 5 years, I'd like
I
probably
think
see.
I will compromise and bring it down to low C for now.
Okay, oh yeah,
Because
see my
I think the thing is like yes, it is redundant, but it's not Wonderworld or Conquest or Firefly.
Wonderworld felt like a redundant version of their first stuff, like their earliest
Yeah,
material. This one feels redundant, like in terms of like the weekly what they're gonna make in the future. Like it's going backwards.
yeah, and they never really.
Uh,
And the thing is, like, they never really return to this sort of
it's a
big
cool name.
sound again. There are cool moments. There are some good songs. I think this album is also I think dedicated to Gary Thane and
Really,
David
it's so
Lyra.
mellow. So mellow though.
I
Is it?
think
Do you feel that when you listen to it? Because to me, it
it
doesn't feel
is.
like I hate anyone.
I think it just feels like late, very mellow and wise. I want to say, but
Alright,
yeah,
I mean, if it's just like yeah, I mean, if it's like that, it's kind of traditional middle of the road
it's a very
style.
interesting album in some ways and a very uninteresting way when you actually listen to it.
Give it a C minus, I guess. I mean, it makes me want to fall asleep. It's a boring one. You can
Bedtime story.
if you're gonna lie on a hill and be like it's a C minus, not a D plus, fine.
I can't bring it to myself to say it's a D plus because of the fact that like it's not Wonderworld. I know I keep saying like I'm really shitting on
I
Wonderworld
thought we
here.
moved Wonderworld. No, we kept it in. Let me listen. I think Wonderworld at least had like character. I mean, this one has better production value.
To me, I feel like Wonderworld like this. Um. Oh man. Um. Sonic
I mean,
Origami.
Wonderworld sounds like the Muppets. Like at least it has character.
Even if the character is completely ill-fitting, but it, you know. And
Yeah,
then
it's ill fit.
I feel like the thing is like Conquest. While I definitely think it deserves to be in D, that has character too. Like that has it's like The Room, almost, where it's like, what is
Honestly,
going on when you're listening
honestly,
to it.
I think Wonderworld is. Sonic Origami has like a cool. Everything about it is like Origami. Good concept. Whatever.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Yeah.
Um,
Let's move on to Wake the Sleeper.
can we just put Underworld and put like Origami and D next to it? That they're
Wait, put Sonic Origami in D with next to what?
Underworld and say that they're sort of in the same boat.
Yeah. Okay. They're not.
It's
They're not
one is
opposite.
one you prefer one, I prefer the other, but I think we both know they're not even that good.
They're a little they're either desperate or trying too hard or both.
Yeah, yeah. They're just kind of running out of ideas.
Yeah.
Um, okay, but the next one is I kind of like this next one. This next one's kind of charming. Uh, Let's see. Don't wake the sleep.
Wake the Sleeper. Um this is the one for me. This
Put it.
is
You put it in D though. Just you're recording it. You did put it. Or
Oh yeah, Sonic Origami I put in D. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
You want me to go through it so far before we get to this next five?
Oh, what's the years? I'm like a little
Oh, this is 2008.
two
This first of the new
thousand
millennium.
eight. Sonic Origami is 1999.
Yeah.
1998.
90 yeah,
In 10
98.
years.
A whole 10 years passes. Uriah Heep was mostly a live band at this point, and then Lee Kurzweil left just before this album's recorded because
Sorry.
he was instructed to retire by his doctor.
Weird.
Um, and live touring had become very grueling for him. So they got a new guy. I keep forgetting his name. Russell Gilbrook might be his name. He's more of a like a thumpier sort of sound to his drums. Um, he's a bit more metal. I want to say he worked with like Avantasia and like Tobias Sammet, Tony Iommi. He definitely has more of a metal pedigree to him, and you can kind of hear it on this album. This is probably the most metal Uriah Heep album in terms of like a modern metal like definition. I think this is the closest they get.
Okay, man. Yeah, this is a good like I said. I think this the podcast. I think this album is like unusually good for like what we can expect from them. You like the 10-year hiatus is going to help with their creation.
Yeah, it's very. I think the thing about this album, though, I think
I can listen to this. Like I can fuck with this album. Like I could do a road trip and listen.
I think
It just doesn't have the same panache. It has an added panache. It doesn't have the same power that the other earliest albums had, or even like some of the last ones we talked about. But it definitely it's just chill. Like it feels like Sea of Light was kind of trying to do. It feels like a more like intimate version.
it's complete, unlike Sea of Life.
Yeah, it has like a sort of a direction.
Yeah. I also just want to say, Mick, this is, in my opinion, this is my favorite Mick
Modern.
Potts album.
It's the first one where he was all alone, wasn't it?
Yeah, the first one where it was just him as as a founding member. I mean, Trevor Bolder
Yeah.
was still there on bass, but he's not a founding member. But he goes nuts on the guitar. Like my God. But still, though, I think even though I personally adore this album, and I really do mean that. Like this is like even though this is I'm not gonna call this their best album. I'm not gonna call this like this is not an S tier album.
Oh, but it's got respectable qualities.
But I think to me this is probably the one I've listened the most to
Really.
out of all of them. This or Salisbury.
Okay, I guess so.
Um,
Okay.
I've always I love this album personally. I think it a as an
The guitar
overall.
solo and there is some impressive guitar solo, like a
Yeah,
wah wah sound a little.
a
It's
lot of
cool.
wah wah, but he goes fucking ham on the wah wah.
Okay,
And
I mean I would say B, but
I just think this album is like so. This album has energy, like it had an infectious energy to it.
you think it's that good?
I
Okay, maybe.
personally do. I think so.
Yeah. You know what? Only got a few more left, and we're probably not gonna rank them too high. Okay, I give it A.
The truth be told, yeah, I do want to. These next two, Into the Wild and Outsider, I don't really have that much to say about them,
Wake the
honestly.
Sleeper. Did I add Wake the Sleeper list? Here it is. Uh,
Oh yeah, I think I also forgot to mention that I don't think Wake the Sleeper. I think there are a few albums on this list that aren't available regularly on most streaming. Um, Wake the Sleeper is one of them.
I'm sorry, I can't give this album. I can't give Wake the Sleep. I give it a B plus. Really, I just can't. I can't, in good conscience. It's an A.
I think
Abominog maybe because the first song is just like a powerhouse hit. Wake the Sleeper doesn't even have a hit.
I feel like as an album it's strong.
Yeah, I mean maybe I can see how like compared to like what else is out there, it's pretty good. I just think compared to like all music, it just doesn't. Compared to their past catalog, it just
I mean,
it's
I tend to
cool.
be very forgiving with things, so maybe I am. I
We
maybe
haven't
I'm a
given
bit.
any. We haven't put anything in B since Waiter.
It's just been ever since ever since the Sweet Freedom incident. I'm just calling it that, even though I'm saying it like Sweet Freedom is a dirty word, but uh ever since the Sweet Freedom incident, Uriah Heep has been a bunch of highs and lows, sometimes extreme highs and extreme
Did you
lows.
give Sea of Light a D initially, or did you give it a C minus?
C, like a solid C somewhere.
I mean, I could. The problem I have is that if I say this album's an A minus, it makes it sound it's like Abominog. I mean, it, look, we're looking at like like the earliest albums and giving them all B. Right? Like we gave a lot of like earlier albums,
I
like their
think
debut.
I think we can
Get
move Look
yourself.
at Yourself up to A.
Yeah, I think hindsight, and then want to get the debut A too, or
Yeah, very heavy too. That it's still fun. Like I can't hate it. I don't hate it. I can't. The B is not suitable for it.
uh,
And then so at B right now I have Equator, High and Mighty, Fallen Angel, Sweet Freedom.
Freedoms in B.
For me at least.
Yeah, let me.
Because like the thing is like it's a Crusader for me. Like it doesn't really it has a first side that's really good and then a second side just doesn't grab me.
Yeah, but the guitar work is fucking crushing.
Yeah, Mick one again another one of Mick Box's best work as a guitarist. I mean, granted, this is like again I
I think
know
it's better
again
guitar work than Wake the Sleeper.
I really like his work on Wake the Sleeper though. That is me though. Granted, I do have like okay maybe I don't have that much credibility. Gremlins 2 is my favorite movie.
Wait, the thing with Wake the Sleeper is it's good, but it's good in like a unexpected way. Whereas you're right that like with Sweet Freedom, you'd expect it to be good, and it is. That doesn't mean that it's a worse album because you expect it to be good. It's just playing
I
against expectations. It can only have so much merit.
I just think that it's like it has another like I just think that this one's more like individual songs that I really like, but I think when I listen to it front to back, it's not as enthralling as say I'm trying. I think the most comparable album is "Look at Yourself."
Okay, well, I'm gonna move Sweet Freedom up to A then, and then we can just leave it at that and keep everything else. 'Cause I just don't think Sweet Freedom's that bad
Oh, it isn't. I like it. I was just saying, like
compared.
after that, like after that album, there was just like mess after that album came out.
Yeah, yeah. So let's put it like at A, and then everything. And then we have three and B.
Yeah, that's Uriah Heep. Only 3 and B. Um,
Five and C.
yeah, F5 and
Uh,
C, F4 and D, and Raging Silence.
okay, cool. And what's up next? I
Into the
can't see it.
Wild.
Wow. Okay, these albums are
I'm gonna be honest.
wild themselves. In the middle of nowhere.
I'm gonna be honest. This album's kind of forgettable. After Wake the Sleeper, um,
Okay. I
after
can
Wake the Sleeper, I don't know.
Uriah Heep to the
May,
wild. It's kind of cool in a way. It's just gruff. It's gruffer than the last one.
yeah. Oh, I actually think what's interesting about this is there's like a record label named
Who's
Frontiers.
who's leads? Tears, yeah. I'm listening to this album right now, just skimming through it because it's
Oh yeah.
like it's got some.
Oh, here on out, yeah. It's a very like Hammond organ sort of album. Like like that '70s rock organ. The like I don't really know how to describe it.
Yeah, it's got some prog. I would say that this album is like a C.
I agree. It's not
It's
very
like
memorable to me.
it's like it's the opposite of Sea of Light. It's trying to instead of pretending to be prog, it's sort of pretending to be like
It's
hard
more
rock
like
again.
it's like I feel like unlike Sea of Light, like it is what it
It is
is.
actually more prog in a way, but they don't seem to emphasize it. They
Yeah,
seem to emphasize the fact that it's hard rock.
they
It's
just
just, but it
don't.
doesn't really feel that way.
They just don't go far enough with it.
Yeah, well, it seems like I think these Sea of Light and while their problem is that they have the qualities of the other one, then they're pretending to be what they seem like it. It's just not true. Sea of Light isn't really a prog album; it's probably more of a hard rock album. And then Into the Wild is more of a prog album, but it pretends to be a hard rock album. It's really weird. It's like a plastic surgery game. They just don't know themselves anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why the albums don't succeed. They're just sort of whatever. What's this next? I give them both C. I think they're
Outsider,
both.
yeah, I agree. Outsider, again, not much to say. They pare back on some of the progressive rock and they go more hard rock on this album.
Okay.
And I mean, it's fine. It's okay. I don't really have that much to say, though. Again, I think I have even less to say. Some of the lyrics are kind of cringy.
They're really trying to be like this Zeppelin thing every once in a while. Like they're trying to be like Led Zeppelin 1 or Times Bad Times. Wow, wow, down in the 70s. They're really trying to get
Yeah,
back into it. It's like
but I feel like whereas like
this never
that's,
even sounded like
I
this.
feel like to me like the '70s sound, like the throwback to the '70s sort of
Honestly, it's kind
feeling.
of bitching. I kind of like this one. I'm bitching.
It's I like the keyboard shit on it,
The,
and
the guitar's good too. The guitar sounds a little like Page actually.
yeah,
Wow, 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 wow. It's like I'm doing the violin kind of thing. Like,
like the
but it's doing
closing
like it's doing
shit.
this like these like sweeps. Like I'm like I kind of dig it. It sounds
Yeah.
like
This has been
motorcycle.
another Mick Box. Thank you, thank you, Mick. Uh,
I give this one B. I think. Let me listen to a few more.
I
Let me
think
skim it a
this.
little.
I just think this one's like unlike Into the Wild, which is like almost completely forgettable in my opinion.
It's like a '70s tribute. It's like an homage or something
I think
like that.
I'd be willing to move it up to B, but
Outsider, Outsiders B.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It sounds so unusual. Album
yeah,
sounds like they're trying to be like trying so hard to be cool. You almost feel like they're cool just out of like pity.
yeah.
Like that's what
That's what the thing. I think it's the lyrics
the
that make
lyrics
me
are.
feel that because like there's a song at the end called "Say Goodbye," and the first lyric line is, and again I'm not putting this up for Eddie Shaw because I think he's doing a great job so far on vocals, but here it's like there's a lyric that says "You took my heart and then sold it online." Like I don't
Oh, that's
know, and
gross.
I don't know, man.
What
um,
awkward.
yeah, and also this
Incredibly
is
awkward, incredibly weird.
yeah. At least the music's good though. Like the music, the
Oh yeah, the music's top notch. I'll give it. I can't give it more than B. Um,
yeah. I think I agree with you on not giving it more than a B though.
it's
Kind
a,
of
it's a
fighting
good road.
for
It's a good road trip album. Driving
yeah.
really fast.
I feel like still so far, I
Wild.
think of this modern era, I still feel like Wake the Sleeper is my favorite of the three that we've talked about so
It's
far.
definitely got the most style. I think it has the most style.
Who
I think
Outsider
it's
or
Awake the
oh
Sleeper.
Sleeper?
I think Wake the Sleeper has kind of the most like personality and style
Yeah, it's
of
very
the modern
flashy.
album. It's flashier. It's cool. Other ones are kind of like goofy and fun and wild, but Wake the Sleeper is like it's like a product more. Um,
It's
but what's up next? Oh, I mean, we have
living the
this.
dream.
penultimate,
A
living
lot
the
of
dream.
a lot of people consider this the official return to their classic sound,
Wow. Okay.
which surprises me because I don't really think it's that far off from Outsider in its sound.
Yeah, it sounds. Well, I think
It's maybe a little proggier.
I mean, they do like chorus singing, and the sound is a little thicker. That's like cut and dry.
It's a little more clear, I think.
And compared to Outsider, it's a little fuzzier and hairier compared to Outsider. That's why they return to
Yeah, and it's a
Return to
another very
Fantasy.
keyboard heavy album.
The keyboards are there. I'm not hearing them as much though.
I think
A
on
little
like
bit.
Grace by Heaven,
That's the only thing it's missing. Honestly.
Rocks on the Road.
Let me see.
Rocks on the Road is a very like keyboard. I think the main riff, honestly, the keyboard dominates the guitar. I think it's Rocks on the Road, right? Let me just make sure before I go nuts. Rocks on the Road, Rocks on the Road.
It does have an old school sound. It gets a little too mellow compared to what they used to.
Yeah, and I think if there's one
So
thing that this has on that Outsider has over this is that this one blurs together a little too.
it definitely blurs together more than Outsider.
But still, I don't think it's bad. I think
It's
it's
an interesting case study in like how like the sound right and still not have the spirit.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
I think it's a C plus. It has that same problem with it to the Wild and Sea of Light have, where it feels like a plastic surgery like upgrade of something that they sort of lost the ability to. It's sort of like they're really trying to not show their age,
but
like having all the
in doing
parts.
that, they show their age.
Yeah, exactly.
I think though, I think this is better than Sea of Light and Into the Wild, and I
Yeah,
think
I think it's a little better. Yeah, it's like a C
I
plus.
think compared to the other C's in C, I'll put it at the top, but it's
Or than
still
Return to
C.
Fantasy and Innocent Victim and Head First.
Yeah. Oh, Head First Return to Fantasy.
I don't think Return to Fantasy is worse. I think Return to Fantasy has the classic sound. Return to Fantasy's problem is that it
It just never picks up after that. after
doesn't
that
pick
first
up. It
track.
kind of falls off, and the music is sort of weird, like focus points.
Yeah.
It's Muppety.
Head First is Head First.
Like the fucking if you listen to Return to Fantasy, like the synth is so fat.
Yeah,
It, it,
very.
it's like it really does have like their old sound in like a different little package. Whereas this one, whatever it is, what we just call it,
Living the
um,
dream.
living the dream. It doesn't have really the sound. It has the instrumentation moving in the same motions, but the actual sound isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
If you actually care about like the tones of the instruments or whatever, I think Return to Fantasy has to be higher.
Yeah, I think I've returned to fantasy. I think that's at the top of C right now. Now it's just fighting with Head First.
Innocent Victim. I don't. Yeah, I mean, even Innocent Victim, I might think is,
I
but
don't know. I don't know about
Head
this.
First. Head First is a more professional sounding album.
Yeah, it's very, but at
I'll
the
give
same
it.
time, it does feel a bit like a product.
It feels like a byproduct of. Yeah, it just feels industrial. It's
Yeah,
a,
but not the way that like Equator is taking a big studio budget and making it work. This is taking the budget you had for the last album and making something that you would do
it's
if
like a
you were under a CD.
Frankenstein monster. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little like haphazard. They knew that they weren't gonna like capture magic in a bottle, lightning in a bottle again. They
I,
still tried it.
I have
You
the
gotta
same
give them credit
feeling about
for the
this
bravery.
album that I have with Blue Oyster Cult's Revolution by Night, which,
Well, I was thinking we should do that for the next
yeah,
round.
it's definitely not as agonizingly long as Uriah Heep.
Oh,
I think this, actually, come to think of it, this recording, I think it's going, real long, like 2 hours ish.
dollars. Yeah, I mean that's kind of normal for the channel if for tier ranking of like like a major tier one.
Yeah.
Um, um, okay, let's finish up with the last album.
Chaos and color. Color.
This one I really like the vocals, even though everything else is sort of bland. I still think the vocals is they're taking a different direction with it. And he you can tell he's like he sounds old and sad, which they haven't done before. He's really like he's like decrepit.
I
Um,
think.
and I think it still is Bernie Shot, right? It has to be.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's still Bernie Shaw. It probably will be until Mick Box, you know,
I
God
really want to
forbid.
see them. I really want to see them live, but they only tour in like the UK now. I
Yeah,
think they were a couple years ago. They were touring in like Denmark. That's the
I'm pretty sure you're right. I think this is their first album in a while to chart somewhere.
uh.
So maybe
This is their
like,
first album. What'd you say?
excuse me, my
It's
bad.
their
I think
first
this is
album
their first
chart.
album in a while to chart in multiple
Countries.
countries. Oh yeah, it made the U.S. Billboard.
Isn't that crazy?
Top album sales on Billboard. It went to number 69. It went to number 1 on UK rock and metal albums when it came out. What the
Number one, dude.
fuck?
What's going on? Yeah, you know what it was, man, is that he sings like this old. He's doing like patient number nine thing where he's kind of singing older. It just kind of works. Like he's not
Yeah,
trying to
it works
sing
in the
like he's
same way that that
30.
album does. But also, I feel like it is like a lot more like I feel like with Chaos and Color. Remember what I was saying before about Sonic Origami, like trying and not succeeding at the
Being
introspective.
conventional and
Not the inconventional. I mean like the introspective lyrical content and the
he's trying to be too adult. Yeah, like trying to be very
yeah.
mature.
This is what that
Just gets
album
it because it has the
try.
appeal, it has this grit to it. Yeah,
This is what Sonic Origami should have been,
it
not
has
what they
the
maybe
necessary
didn't.
grit. Yeah, Sonic Origami was trying to be mature, but it just didn't have any grit. This one has
Yeah.
grit, and
This one has
because
grit,
of
which
that.
makes you buy the emotion of the lyrics.
Right.
There are, I feel
Yeah,
like there.
I give it a B. It's like a
I
B.
think this is the top of B,
Yeah.
and I think this is their best album since Sleeper, for sure. I mean, granted, not shitting on Outsider, but still. And
Let me write these in. What do we give Outsider? We give Outsider a B.
B. Oh yeah, should we start from the bottom?
Hold on. I'm just typing these into the spreadsheet, right?
Oh
Because I
sure.
did all these. Living the Dream was C.
Yeah.
Or I'll give it. I personally think it's more like a standard B, but you'll give it B plus and
What?
compliment B plus. Really, Chaos and Color. I mean, I'm not like I can only sing its praises so much. So the Wild was like kind of like a B two or a C.
I think I put it in C.
Yeah, because it had that weird sort of
Yeah, that for
you know,
sure. I think if there's one thing
bison-y. It was all bison-y, and it was trying to be like outdoors.
that one's definitely I think the worst of the modern Heap albums.
The Wild.
Yeah, I mean like
No, like
of
Living the Dream. That was or whatever.
I think Living the Dream is a little better just because like
Okay, maybe yeah, because
I don't know.
it has like a standard definition.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so I got these. I got the data points filled in. Let's see. So we have two. Okay, let's talk. We're gonna end the podcast in a sec. What's the total time?
Okay, how do I find out again? Oh
The
yeah, we're at
OBS.
2 hours and 18 minutes. We can watch a whole Godzilla 1998 in this
Yeah,
time. But don't do that.
we can
But
watch a mediocre make of a 50s classic that ended up getting remade again in the early 2000s, the 80s. Yeah, we could do that, but we're not going to. We're gonna top it off with um a review on the two S tier albums are Salisbury, Demons and Wizards, a
yeah,
close kind of neck and neck at the top. Number A is in A we have six albums, which is a lot. Um, Christian's Birthday, Abominon, big '80s album.
hmm
Then we have their big 2000, or is this in the 2000s?
Which one?
With almost everyone dead except for Mick
Oh, Wake
Box,
the Sleeper.
the sleeper. A good return to form. And then we have Uriah Heep, Look at Yourself. Kind of a weird album, disappointing, but it somehow has enough star power that it stays an A, low end. That's kind of true about their debut album, next one called very heavy, very humble.
Very heavy.
And depending on what country you live in, it's gonna have a different cover. And the
Yeah.
last one in A is also kind of low end of A.
Sweet
On
Freedom.
Freedom. It's got a lot of good bells and whistles. Mickey album, but some good. Then B, more you got their latest album, which is impressive.
Chaos
Also
and
the
Color.
also their big '80s album that was really unusual, and they signed with CBS and has a pop sound. Um,
Equator.
later, then you have Fallen Angel is kind of like their hipster album. I believe Ken Hensley was really involved. And I kind of like it. I think it's worthy of B. You have High and Mighty, which is also like call it hipster, but it's sort of obscure, quirky. That
Yeah.
one's also B. And then
The Jason cover.
Outsider, which is a very strange sort of like homage to like almost like a Zeppelin or like Top or I don't even know like Bad Company. It's got this weird like blues rock hard rock tribute. It kind of works actually. So give it a
Yeah.
B. And then you're right. He Return to Fantasies and top of C. The reason is that it just really it's trying to rest on the laurels of its title track too much. But beyond that, it's got a pretty cool sound. That the songs are sort of meandering and all over the place. And then we have what's the next one? Living Color or
Uh,
whatever.
Living the Dream.
Living the Dream is next. It's similar to Outsider. It's got kind of a return to form homage sound. It just doesn't have that chic tone to it that the Outsider does. It doesn't really have the same rhythm value. It tries a little too hard to recapitulate everything that Uriah Heep doesn't really have any authentic. It doesn't have the same authenticity it has.
Yeah, it doesn't have
Um,
the authenticity of Outsider, even Chaos and Color to an extent.
in Chaos and Colors also has more authenticity. Yeah,
Yeah, that you can buy into more. Living the Dream is just
Living the Dream was kind of plastic, but it did try it. It was a noble attempt and brave attempt to bring back an old sound. And
the album
I
cover
fell
does not
short.
help.
Some cover is a little dumb.
Yeah,
It's
probably
just
my least favorite out of all these covers.
honestly, yeah, I agree because the moon is like who wants to see that,
It
right?
looks like an album made by an aging band.
Aging band, yeah, it looks like an album made by a nothing band.
It's funny because Chaos and Color is their newest album. They're older when they made that, and it doesn't look like that.
No, they didn't make the same mistakes. They learned from them.
Yeah, they
It
learned.
was
They hired a different artist.
they had to suffer the fucking ramifications, nonetheless. And then the next in C is Innocent Victim, which I think is probably a little better than what Michael thinks, but it's also like a bells and whistles album. It's just funky, and that's what's cool about it. But it's not. I think it's a weird. I think it's at the high end of C, honestly. I think it's just such a weird album. It's not something you'd want to listen to all the. It is got some strange characters.
Yeah,
First, kind of a nauseating, uplifting album. Good, but just barely. It's a
it's
little
80s.
too. It's a little too 80s. It's got all this cheese going on.
It's
Not the
trying a
best.
bit hard to be Foreigner.
And yeah, trying to be a different band. It's just sort of missing the mark early. Next up is Different World. This one is like a '90s version of Head for. It's like it is trying to be a different band entirely, but it's like a '90s band, not an '80s. Um,
It's a
kind of a
little
funny dilemma there.
yeah.
And then Sea of Light is a cool album, but weren't Uriah Heep. You can tell that Uriah Heep is trying some weird shit doing it. It doesn't really sound amazing. It's just it's a concept album, but it sort of fails to conceptual.
Yeah,
It was just sort of very deep. Um,
I'll give a shout out to the opening track, but otherwise,
it's not like a bottom of the barrel album. It's
yeah.
It's just
It's
unexceptional.
just, yeah, it's there.
It's just it's gonna be hard to get anything out of it. And then
Yeah,
the same can be said to Into the Wild. It's just not very original. It's kind of this plastic surgery overhaul. Um, like they're trying to hide their age. Now going down to D, Wonderworld's in D. Wonderworld is a little bit like Innocent Victim, and it's got weird qualities here and there, but it doesn't really make up for bad bad songwriting, lack of direction, inconsistency, just the slog. It's not it's uninteresting material. Doesn't just it's just kind of you would think they would be a little higher than some of the newer albums like Abominog even, but because it's just so like dense with like nothing, it just kind of feels like weighted down.
yeah.
Um,
It's a real shame
the
that this
over
is the last album with Gary Thane.
well, I don't blame him. I'd fucking get bored of it too, and fuck off. I mean,
Yeah,
one way or another. I mean, it was a weird album, and it felt that they don't really know what they're doing anymore. Sad way. But at the same time, it's not the worst album in the world. It's just a fucking kind of like a heat funk. And then the next one is oh, Cosmic Origami or whatever, Sonic
oh yeah,
Origami.
Sonic Origami.
That one sounds like it's cool, but then you listen to it, and it's just so vanilla and like airy
A little pretentious.
and shit. Yeah, it's trying to be bougie. It just kind of it's like it's not radio. 98 album. They're trying to do this OK Computer thing kind of in rainbows or trying to do Radiohead and they're not.
Yeah.
Next one is Conquest, which is their first 80s album. And these are all D. That's three.
This is Conquest is like the room of Uriah Heep albums, where it's like
Yeah,
it is just
this one's
so
really indulgent and just sort of it's like it's almost like athletic rather than art.
yeah,
Sort of
but in that way, it at least has a character,
has
even
some
if
character. I mean, they all have some character.
yeah, it has character. Like it does technically sound. If I think to me, it sounds more fresh than like Firefly, but
Firefly is at the
it's
bottom of
still not
D,
good.
and Firefly, and I mean, I think because it has the original sound for the most part, sound is pretty old school. I think you can listen to it. You're just not going to find a lot of value. Yeah, as
Yeah,
far as I
it's
can remember.
in one ear out the other.
It's like you would think you'd get a lot more out of it, but it feels like a really childish version of Uriah Heep, like Uriah Heep for kids or something. It doesn't
Yeah, like
power.
radio friendly demons and wizards.
Yeah, exactly. Very innocent.
And
Yeah.
even then, demons and wizards, I
Innocent.
can imagine being radio friendly too at some point.
Okay, and then the yeah, I mean it's just I don't know how to explain. It feels like a children's book.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like. Just it feels like, they just don't have really any sort of what's it called when like you take all the scrap. It's like the B roll of like of earlier everything,
yeah,
all their ideas that they got to waste this out. And it shows. And
yeah.
then the last one, which I would say is even way worse than Firefly, looks similar in position. It's actually is raging. What's it called?
Raging Silence. I have it on F on mine. Is it a D or F on your end?
It's F because oh no. To be fair, all these albums are like respectable. You can kind of listen to all of them, like, and no one's gonna like shit out of you,
Hmm.
and call you a Nazi or something. Like raging, whatever it's called, is just the worst of the. It feels like what's it called? Raging Fires or whatever.
Raging Silence.
Raging Silence. Raging Silence is like feels like you're listening to like liquid garbage. It just feels like it feels weird. You don't feel like a person listening, but
Yeah,
you can do it. It's better than listening to no music, I guess. Just it doesn't produce a good feeling.
it's better than listening to. I don't know.
You know what, man? This if you want to listen to like the most random 80s rock, it's a good. That's what it serves. Is
Yeah,
that
but even then, like, if you do want to
even
listen
then?
to like random '80s rock, you have Equator
Any
and
more option?
Abominog. If you want to listen
Even
to this
even this,
band,
but if you want to listen like really, you want to listen to generic '80s rock for like the sole purpose of sounding like it's music, and that's the only rule it can.
yeah, and
Like
again, even then, there's Head First.
even then, like the other stuff kind of works better anyway.
Yeah, it
This
just
one,
doesn't really have much of a point. And if you were to tell me that the lineup who made this would be the longest lasting lineup, consistent lineup in Uriah Heep history, I would not. And I only listen to this album, I would not believe you. I would think you're joking.
yeah, you know what it feels like? It feels like the fact that they could put together such a album was like reassuring to them. Like, we can cooperate. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
if we can collaborate on bullshit, that means we can collaborate on anything. And
if
like,
we
you know what I mean?
if we could just
For the
force this
last
out, it'll be fine.
the fact that they can force out such a bad album tells me that they had cohesion as a group. They're like they're not at each other's throats over like keeping
Yeah,
each other's dreams or whatever. Whereas in the other, the earlier lineup, I'm sure they had so much contention, like artistic. At this point, they don't even care anymore. Like we'll just make anything.
yeah.
It was just throwing one to the wolves. Okay. Anyway, so we'll wrap up. We did wrap up. All
Oh
right.
yeah,
That's
let's
been
yeah.
next one up. I think we're gonna do Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, for sure. If you're interested, I'd also be interested at doing a praying mantis at some point. But they don't
Hey,
have
no, definitely. I don't know anything about that one.
compared to
I'll
Uriah Heep. I think Blue Oyster Cult and Praying Mantis would be very refreshing. Their discographies aren't too long.
Dry Heap is a weird one. It feels like road trip music. It doesn't really feel like doesn't really feel like substantial a lot of the time. That's kind of part of the fun. Sometimes it's more fun to pick apart. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think like all
And to
jokes
be
aside,
fair,
like I do.
they do have some really good music. I'd say
Yeah,
there's really wide stretches of wasteland.
I think if
It's like
I
it's like driving through the right. All right, now, without
yeah
trashing the heat, let's without any further ado, resolve the podcast. Thank
yep
you for watching. Hours of your time. It's really precious. I mean, and I'm glad you bothered. We'll see you next time.
yeah. We'll see you guys when we do the funny Oyster Boys.
Blue
All
oyster
right.
balls. Yeah. All right. Take
Yeah.
care.